Alaska's endless snowfields hide secrets older than anyone can imagine. Amidst the frozen wilderness lie abandoned villages, deserted homes, and frost-covered streets. By day, the wind howls across the barren landscape, carrying only the cold. But at night, the snow itself seems to whisper. Figures move silently among the ruins. Windows flicker with unseen lights. Footsteps crunch in the snow, but no one is there. Locals warn against wandering into these lost villages. Some who enter never return. Some report hearing voices calling their names across the ice. And some see shapes in the snow that vanish the instant they are noticed. Tonight, we will step into 25 abandoned villages in Alaska where the snow preserves more than just ice, where the past never truly dies, and where the darkness is never empty. Greetings, my friend. I hope you are warm and safe tonight, because what we are about to explore is a frozen world where even the bravest fear to tread. Alaska's abandoned villages are not just empty buildings. They are echoes of lives once lived, of tragedies buried beneath the snow, and of spirits who linger long after the last footprints have faded. The villages were abandoned for many reasons: harsh winters, failed industries, isolation. But the stories left behind tell of something else. Ghostly figures moving across frozen streets. Whispers drifting through empty cabins. Lights flickering in windows of homes long deserted. Some explorers have seen shadows that do not belong to any human. Some have felt icy hands brush against their necks. Some have heard cries for help carried by the wind, only to find nothing. Every village has its own tale. Every frozen street holds a secret. And every night, the snow becomes a veil between the living and the dead. Before we wander into these abandoned Alaskan villages, I have a question for you. If you were walking alone through a snow-covered village at midnight, and you felt eyes watching you from the shadows, would you dare to call out? Or would you run, hoping not to become part of the legend? Leave your answer in the comments if you dare. And now, let us journey into the lost villages of Alaska together. Port Snettisham lies quietly amid the rugged Alaskan wilderness, a small mining village suspended in time. The air is crisp and cold, carrying the scent of pine and the faint salt of the nearby waters. Snow blankets the streets and rooftops, muffling footsteps and lending an eerie stillness to the place. It is a landscape both beautiful and haunting, where the echoes of the past linger just beneath the surface. Shadows drift across the snow-covered streets, moving as if guided by unseen hands. They appear in the peripheral vision of those who wander here, vanishing when looked at directly. The buildings, worn and weathered by decades of harsh weather, seem to hold memories in their walls. Windows dark and lifeless by day sometimes glow faintly at night, as though the village itself breathes with the spirits of those who once lived and worked here. Visitors speak of lights flickering in abandoned cabins, brief glimmers that reveal the outlines of empty rooms, only to vanish as quickly as they appeared. The interiors are frozen in time, remnants of a bustling mining community, preserved under layers of dust and frost. Each cabin tells a story of labor, struggle, and hope, and yet there's a sense that the spirits of the miners linger, still tending to tasks that ended long ago. Wind sweeps through the streets, rustling broken signs and shifting snowdrifts, carrying with it whispers of miners long gone. The voices are faint, like echoes bouncing off the mountains and fjords, yet unmistakable in their presence. Some hear faint laughter, the sound of boots on wooden floors, and the clink of metal tools, though the village is empty. It is as if the life that once animated Port Snettisham never truly departed, lingering in the very air and structures of the settlement. The terrain itself adds to the haunting atmosphere. Snow and ice dominate the landscape. The docks, long abandoned, creak softly as they shift in the tides, hinting at ships that once carried ore and supplies. The stillness is absolute, yet there is a subtle movement sensed by those who tread carefully through the village at night. Inside the cabins, remnants of domestic life remain. Chairs are overturned, tools left mid-task, and personal belongings scattered, as if the owners had simply vanished. Some claim to see fleeting figures in the windows, hunched over workbenches, or standing silently by the fire. The temperature often drops inexplicably in these spaces, creating a sensation of being watched. It is a reminder that this village holds its history close, and that history has not entirely released its hold. Footsteps are reported along the snow-laden streets, echoing across empty avenues. They come from no visible source, and they fade as quickly as they arrive. The crunch of snow underfoot seems sometimes too deliberate, too rhythmic to be merely natural, giving the sensation that unseen residents still traverse the village under the cover of darkness. At times, the sound of doors opening or closing can be heard, carried by the wind. Yet when investigated, the structures remain undisturbed. The port area, once bustling with ships and activity, now stands silent. Rusting equipment and decaying would hint at a past of labor and commerce, while the waves lap quietly against abandoned docks. Lights are seen flickering aboard the waterlogged piers, brief illuminations that vanish when approached. Some visitors describe a feeling of a presence guiding them, unseen hands pointing toward long-forgotten pathways or hidden corners of the village. Even the forest surrounding the settlement seems alive with memory. Snow-laden branches sometimes form shapes that vanish at a blink, shadows mimicking human forms. The stillness is deceptive. Every sound, every movement is amplified in the crisp night air, creating an immersive atmosphere that is as beautiful as it is unsettling. Those who spend time in Port Snettisham often report a profound sense of connection to the past. The village is not merely abandoned. It is inhabited in a way that transcends the physical, a place where memory, energy, and history coalesce. Visitors feel the weight of countless stories, the labor and lives of miners who endured the harsh conditions of this remote land. It is a presence both subtle and undeniable, shaping the way one experiences every corner of the settlement. The village offers moments of quiet reflection, a space where the living can feel the proximity of the past. Snow crunches underfoot, wind brushes against the skin, and shadows move with an almost sentient awareness. Lights flicker in the distance, inside cabins and along the docks, signaling the persistence of energy and memory. Whispers carried on the wind provide a soundtrack to night, reminding those who listen that Port Snettisham is more than an abandoned mining village. It is a place where history lives in every shadow, every gust of wind, and every flicker of light. Port Snettisham endures as a haunting testament to human endeavor and the passage of time. The cabins, streets, docks, and forests all carry traces of life that once thrived here, and those traces remain etched into the very fabric of the settlement. Figures drift, lights flicker, and whispers linger, creating an atmosphere of mystery and intrigue. Visitors leave with a heightened awareness, sensing that this small Alaskan village, frozen in snow and time, holds stories that will never fully be told, yet will forever be felt by those who wander through its hauntingly beautiful expanse. Chitanica is a place frozen in time, a remnant of Alaska's gold rush era, where hopes and hardships shaped every log cabin and mining shack. The settlement once bustled with prospectors chasing dreams of fortune, but now it lies abandoned, its buildings weathered and creaking under the relentless grip of snow and ice. Walking through the empty streets, the air feels heavy with memory, as if the land itself remembers the lives that once filled it. Footsteps echo across the wooden floors of deserted halls, though no one is present. The sound is faint at first, a soft creak or a tap, then grows as if someone invisible is pacing, retracing routines long forgotten. Visitors report the sensation of being followed, a subtle awareness of movement at the edges of the eye, always just beyond the clarity of the eye. Near the frozen river, ghostly figures are said to appear, translucent outlines of men and women from another time. They stand along the icy banks, staring out over the glinting surface, as if waiting for something that will never return. Their presence is subtle, fleeting, and yet unmistakable, a silent reminder that this land holds more than empty structures and frozen water. The wind carries faint calls for help, drifting through the settlement like whispers from the past. Sometimes the cries seem distant and ethereal, other times sharp enough to make visitors pause and listen, and where the environment itself was both partner and adversary in the pursuit of gold. Cabins and shacks stand with doors swinging on rusted hinges, and windows frosted over with layers of ice. Shadows stretch across the walls, elongated and shifting with the movement of the fading light. Each room tells a story through its decay, a silent witness to the people who once inhabited these spaces. Their labor, their dreams, and their fears preserved in the stillness. The remnants of mining equipment, half buried in snow and rust, add to the eerie atmosphere. Broken carts and abandoned tools hint at a sudden departure, as if the settlement itself decided to vanish. Visitors walking among these relics often feel a sensation of unseen hands brushing past, a chill that rises from floors and walls, leaving an impression of life once present but now just beyond reach. Paths through the town wind past crumbling foundations and toppled fences. The sound carries, bouncing off distant hills and frozen riverbanks, emphasizing the isolation and emptiness of the place. At night, the settlement transforms. Figures seem to flicker at the edge of perception, walking among the ruins as if retracing routines of a bygone era. Footsteps continue to echo in empty halls, and the wind carries whispers that blend with the creaking of timber and the distant groan of ice. The wind carries whispers that blend with the creaking of timber and the distant groan of ice. The frozen river glimmers under the moonlight, reflecting the stark silhouettes of abandoned cabins and skeletal trees. Ghostly forms appear along the banks, their presence subtle but undeniable, lingering like a memory that refuses to fade. Visitors often feel a tug, a pull toward the water, as if the river itself holds stories of those who disappeared along its icy surface. Even in daylight, Chitanica exudes a mysterious energy. The snow reflects a blinding brilliance, yet shadows lurk in the corners of cabins and behind toppled logs. The wind carries whispers through the empty streets, and the sensation of unseen observers is constant, reminding visitors that they are walking through a place where the past and the unknown coexist. Kennecott sits quietly beneath the vast Alaskan sky, a copper mining town frozen in time. Snow drifts across its abandoned streets, settling atop the wooden roofs of buildings left to weather decades of isolation. The wind whistles through broken windows and warped doorframes, carrying the echoes of a past long gone but not forgotten. Abandoned buildings creak in the snow-laden wind. Each structure tells a story of labor, ambition, and the harsh reality of life in one of the most remote corners of the world. The wooden walls moan under the weight of ice and snow, and the faintest movements can seem alive in the dim, shifting light. Visitors often pause at the edge of town, sensing the strange stillness, the feeling that the buildings themselves are watching, waiting, holding memories within their weathered timbers. Figures appear at windows where no one lives. In the fading light of day or under the silvery glow of moonlight, shapes are glimpsed behind frosted glass. Sometimes they linger, unmoving, as if observing intruders to their quiet domain. Other times, they vanish when approached, leaving only the frozen panes and the soft echo of footsteps on snow. The town seems to breathe through these silent watchers, a presence both subtle and undeniable. Some see miners still wandering the streets at night, clad in the attire of decades past. They move as shadows, their forms outlined against the snow and wooden buildings. There is a rhythm to their movements, a labor repeated endlessly and yet never complete. The distant sound of metal tools striking rock or the faint hum of a cart over wooden planks occasionally drifts across the empty streets, creating a sense that the town has never truly slept, that its workers remain tethered to the place where they toiled and dreamed. The streets themselves are narrow and lined with structures built for endurance. Storefronts, homes, and mining offices stand in stark contrast to the expansive wilderness surrounding them. The snow muffles every step, amplifying the silence, and yet there is a tension in that stillness, a feeling that every shadow could conceal a lingering presence, though no one walked beside them, a subtle awareness of another consciousness sharing the path. Inside the buildings, the effect is intensified. Dust hangs and sunbeams that filter through broken windows. Dust hangs and sunbeams that filter through broken windows. Rusted machinery rests where it was abandoned, frozen in time. Rusted machinery rests where it was abandoned, frozen in time. Wooden floors sag beneath the weight of snow and ice. Wooden floors sag beneath the weight of snow and ice, and the air carries a cold, almost metallic scent. And the air carries a cold, almost metallic scent. Voices seem to ripple through empty rooms, whispers of conversations, laughter, and commands once given in the rush of daily labor. The mining structures themselves hold a more tangible presence. Shafts descend into darkness, and equipment left behind creaks with the settling of the earth. Shadows move along the walls where no one treads, and a faint shimmer in the cold air suggests forms not entirely of this world. The deeper into the town one ventures, the stronger the sensation that the spirits of miners linger, bound to the place that defined their lives. Winter nights in Kennecott are particularly haunting. Snow swirls in gusts that sweep through the streets, forming patterns that almost resemble footprints. The wind carries faint sounds of voices, the scrape of metal, and the soft thud of boots on wooden walkways. Figures can be glimpsed in alleyways or near the remains of old cabins, appearing for an instant before dissolving into the darkness. Each sighting feels intimate and fleeting, as though the town allows a glimpse but guards its full story jealously. Visitors describe the sensation of time bending within the town. Minutes can stretch into hours, and the present seems to mingle with the past. Every corner, every window, seems to hold layers of memory. The remnants of daily life, from empty kitchens to rusted beds, evoke a vivid sense of presence. The town is a living memory, and the cold, quiet air serves as a conduit for the experiences of those who once lived, worked, and died within its boundaries. Even the natural surroundings play a role in the haunting atmosphere. The mountains and glaciers that encircle Kennecott create an almost otherworldly isolation. Howling winds carry distant sounds that can be mistaken for footsteps or calls. And the snow reflects moonlight in ways that suggest movement where there is none. The combination of wilderness and decayed human structures amplifies the uncanny feeling, creating a sense of being both observed and alone. Exploring Kennecott is like stepping into a time capsule inhabited by echoes. Each building, each street, each shadow tells a story. Figures drift along snow-covered walkways. Miners linger in remembered labor. Whispers float through frozen halls. The town is at once beautiful and unsettling, a frozen monument to ambition, hardship, and human persistence. As night falls, the wind picks up and the town seems to exhale. Shapes move behind broken windows. Footsteps follow along deserted streets. Cold air carries with it the weight of memory. Kennecott endures not only in its physical structures, but in the spectral echoes that continue to walk its paths. Those who venture here experience the delicate balance between the tangible and the unseen, between history and the lingering spirits that call this Coppertown home. In Kennecott, the past is never truly gone. It whispers through the creaking floors, drifts across snow-laden streets, and peers through windows into present. The town remains a place where time and memory converge, where the restless energy of miners, laborers, and residents continues to inhabit the empty spaces, inviting visitors to witness the quiet, enduring presence that defines this historic Alaskan ghost town. Tyonek is a village frozen in time, located in the vast expanse of Alaska, where snow and ice dominate the landscape. Once a bustling community, the village now lies mostly silent beneath heavy blankets of snow, its wooden homes and structures encased in frost. Shadowy forms drift across the snow-covered streets, their movements subtle yet unmistakable. Visitors walk in the paths, feel a presence at the edge of vision, a sense that the village is not entirely empty. These figures appear briefly, vanishing as soon as they are noticed, leaving only the feeling that something or something has passed moments before. The frozen landscape amplifies every sound and motion, making each encounter deeply immersive and quietly unsettling. Whispers carry from deserted homes, soft voices carried by the wind through broken windows, and icy doorways. The sound is never clear enough to form full sentences, yet it resonates deeply with those who listen. Visitors pause, straining to hear more, feeling the presence of the village's past inhabitants lingering just beyond perception. Cold spots appear suddenly, more intense than the winter air itself. A breeze that chills the bones seems to materialize without explanation, brushing against shoulders and arms. The sensation is immediate and startling, leaving a heightened awareness of the environment. It is as though the village itself breathes, reacting to the presence of outsiders, and reminding them that this place is still alive in subtle, unseen ways. The architecture of Taonek contributes to the eerie atmosphere. Their roofs sag under the weight of ice, and windows, frosted and cracked, catch the dim light of a winter sky. Corridors of snow between homes lead visitors through the village, creating pathways where shadows stretch and bend in the low light. The wind whistles through empty doorways and across frozen fields, carrying sound that might be interpreted as distant movement or faint voices. Walking the village at twilight or night is an exercise in perception. Each step across the snow crunches loudly, echoing in the stillness, and every shadow seems to move independently. The frozen paths are lined with subtle movements, hints of figures that vanish when approached. The experience evokes a sense of timelessness, as though the village exists in a space between past and present, where memory and environment converge. Inside the abandoned homes, the silence is profound. Floors creak underfoot, and the wind produces soft moans through gaps in the wood. Visitors sometimes feel an icy touch on a hand or shoulder, fleeting but unmistakable. The effect is never threatening, but it is intensely real, creating a connection between the observer and the unseen residents who remain tied to this place. Each sensation adds to the narrative of Taonek as a living memory frozen in ice. The frozen environment enhances the ethereal nature of the village. Snow drifts and ice formations distort light, creating shadows that move with the wind. Footsteps, both real and imagined, echo along paths that lead nowhere. The interplay of sound, movement, and perception transforms ordinary snow-covered landscapes into spaces alive with subtle phenomena. Visitors quickly learn to observe carefully, noting details that might otherwise be missed, and appreciating the delicate balance between what is seen and what is sensed. Whispers and voices often seem to rise and fall in rhythm with the wind. Some speak as if from nearby cabins, while others drift across the fields from a distance. Names, fragment of conversation, and muted calls reach the ears of travelers, prompting pause and reflection. The auditory experience is immersive, blending with the visual presence of shadowy forms and cold spots to create a hauntingly beautiful landscape of subtle activity. Moving through Taonek at night, the village appears almost suspended in a dream. Snow drifts cover remnants of fences and walkways, and ice coats every surface with a reflective sheen. Figures appear at the periphery, whispers drift on the wind, and sudden chills remind visitors that the village holds more than the physical remains of its past. The environment feels alive, aware, and quietly interactive, shaping experiences that linger long after leaving the frozen paths. Taonek is not a place of immediate danger, but of quiet intrigue and reflection. Shadowy figures, icy touches, and whispers combine to create a living memory of a village overtaken by snow and time. The landscape, architecture, and subtle phenomena offer perspective that is both immersive and unforgettable. Visitors are invited to witness the interplay between history, environment, and unseen presence, creating a sense of connection to a place that exists beyond the ordinary. As night deepens and the wind rises, the village takes on a deeper sense of life. Shadows drift across frozen paths. Whispers carry farther along the snow-laden streets. Cold spots appear unexpectedly in abandoned cabins. Each element reinforces the impression that Taonek is more than a village. It is a repository of memory, presence, and subtle activity. The experience leaves visitors with a lasting awareness of the unseen, a recognition that even in silence and ice, life in some form persists. Taonek endures as a frozen testament to the past. Its shadowy figures, whispers, and sudden chills invite those who walk its paths to observe, reflect, and engage with the unseen layers of the village. The interplay of snow, ice, wind, and subtle phenomena creates a hauntingly immersive environment, one that lingers in memory long after leaving. The village remains alive, a quiet narrative of history and presence etched into frozen landscapes, waiting for those willing to witness its mysteries. Waiting for those willing to witness its mysteries. Fort Yukon sits quietly along the frozen banks of the Yukon River, a place where the past lingers in every corner. Once a bustling trading post, it now holds abandoned structures that speak of days long gone. Snow blankets the ground, muffling footsteps and lending an eerie stillness to the settlement. The buildings, weathered by time and the harsh Alaskan winters, stand as silent witnesses to generations of life and labor. Footsteps are sometimes heard in snow-covered corridors, echoing through empty hallways and across frozen floors. Visitors speak a sensation of being watched, a subtle presence that moves alongside them, unseen but undeniably felt. The cold air carries whispers that seem to come from the walls themselves, a faint murmur of voices lost in time. Ghostly figures appear in frozen doorways, translucent shapes that drift silently across the snow. They linger for a moment, only to vanish when approached, leaving behind a chill that seeps into the bones. The windows of the old trading post sometimes glow with faint lights, flickering in buildings that have no electricity. These lights cast long shadows across the snow, creating the illusion of movement where there should be none. Inside the structures, remnants of daily life remain frozen in time. Rusted tools, overturned chairs, and scattered personal items hint at the human stories that once filled these spaces. Each room tells a tale of survival, of commerce, and of lives intertwined with the harsh environment. The cold seems to hold the past in place, preserving the echoes of activity that once animated these walls. The river nearby reflects the pale light of the moon, its surface partially frozen and shimmering in the darkness. The sound of ice shifting and water lapping against the banks adds to the haunting atmosphere. Shadows move across the riverbank, elongated by the low light, suggesting figures walking along paths now abandoned. Every sound, every movement is amplified in the quiet night, creating a sense of tension and anticipation. Visitors report feeling sudden drops in temperature as they walk through certain rooms or along specific corridors. A breeze seems to pass through walls that should be solid, carry with the faint scent of smoke and wood. Occasionally, the distant sound of footsteps or voices can be heard outside, though no one is visible. It is as if the past refuses to remain silent, reaching across time to make itself known. The surrounding landscape adds to the sense of isolation and mystery. The horizon is lined with mountains and frozen plains, a vast expanse that feels both beautiful and foreboding. The silence is profound, broken only by the occasional cracking of ice or the rustle of wind through abandoned structures. Some visitors describe seeing figures moving along the rooftops or in the upper windows of the old buildings. These shapes are fleeting, appearing for a moment and then disappearing, leaving only the sensation that something or something is observing. The interplay of light and shadow creates scenes that seem alive with energy, as if the settlement itself remembers the lives that once animated it. The trading post, though abandoned, retains an unmistakable presence. Each structure, each frozen doorway, carries a memory of work, commerce, and human connection. The flickering lights, the footsteps in snow, and the shifting shadows all contribute to an atmosphere that is both haunting and mesmerizing. Those who wander through Fort Yukon feel a deep connection to the past, as they're walking alongside the spirits of those who lived and labored here decades, even centuries ago. Even the quietest corners of Fort Yukon are not without their stories. Old cabins, storage sheds, and trading rooms seem to hold an energy that is almost tangible. The wind moves through gaps in the wood, producing creaks and groans that echo like whispers. Visitors often pause, sensing that these structures have much to reveal to those patient enough to listen, their histories etched into the very walls and frozen grounds. Nightfall transforms the settlement into an even more spectral place. Shadows lengthen across the snow, and the moonlight illuminates the abandoned buildings with a pale, ghostly glow. The river glints in the darkness, reflecting the flickering lights of structures that should not shine. Every step feels measured, every sound amplified, creating a sense of walking through a landscape where the present and the past intersect. Fort Yukon remains a haunting reminder of human perseverance and the passage of time. Its abandoned structures, frozen corridors, flickering lights, and shadowy figures offer glimpses into lives once lived here. The village stands as both a historical monument and a place where the supernatural seems to linger, a space where memory, mystery, and environment converge. Visitors leave with the unmistakable sense that Fort Yukon is more than a forgotten trading post. It is a place where history breathes, shadows move, and the past is never truly gone. Shagaluk lies quietly along the frozen river, a village frozen in both time and memory. Once a small settlement, thriving along the riverbanks, it now stands deserted, its wooden cabins blanketed by layers of snow, their roofs sagging under the weight of years of isolation. Walking through the village, the silence is profound, broken only by the occasional creak of timber or the whisper of wind across the icy landscape. Figures drift silently along the snow-laden streets. They move with a grace that seems almost deliberate, as if retracing the steps of long-forgotten routines. Their presence is fleeting, glimpsed at the corner of the eye, vanishing when approached, leaving only the faintest impression on the snow-covered ground. Some visitors describe a chill that rises suddenly, an awareness that something unseen is following, observing, yet remaining just out of reach. Whispers echo through the empty cabins. These sounds are soft, almost like remnants of conversations carried to the walls and over time. The voices are indistinct, fading in and out, leaving listeners questioning whether the village is haunted by memory or by something more tangible. Steps on creaking floors, doors swaying on rusted hinges, and the low murmur of wind combine to create an atmosphere thick with anticipation, as though the village itself holds its breath. The overall effect is one of foreboding and unease, leaving viewers wondering what horrors may be lurking just beyond the edge of perception. Along the river, shadows vanish into the frozen water. The surface glimmers under the pale Alaskan light, reflecting the skeletal outlines of cabins and the skeletal branches of trees bent by winter storms. Figures appear and disappear along the banks, their shapes indistinct and ephemeral. Some seem to glance toward the water, as if waiting for someone or something lost to time, while others retreat silently into the shadows of the village. The landscape surrounding Shagaluk is stark and unforgiving. Snowdrifts obscure paths and fill the spaces between buildings, while the frozen river stretches like a silver ribbon through the emptiness. The wind carries a biting cold that seems to seep into the bones, yet it also brings with it an almost audible memory, the faint echoes of life that once thrived here. Cabins stand weathered and worn, their logs darkened by years of exposure. Windows are frost-covered, and doors hang askew on their hinges. Inside, the remnants of daily life linger at empty shelves, forgotten tools, and the faint scent of wood and cold. Visitors moving through these spaces often feel the sensation of being watched, a presence that is patient, silent, and ever-present. The village paths twist between the cabins and along the riverbanks. Each step crunches in the snow, a sound amplified in the frozen stillness. Footsteps are sometimes answered by other steps, echoing as though another is walking just behind. Yet when turned to confront the sound, nothing is there. Shadows shift in corners, stretching and retreating with the movement of light and wind, creating the sense that the village is alive with more than just memory. As night falls, Shagaluk transforms into a place of heightened mystery. The moon casts long, silver shadows across the snow, and the wind carries faint whispers through the empty streets. Figures drift more distinctly in the dim light, appearing near cabins or along the river, their forms fleeting yet undeniable. Visitors report a cold touch on their shoulders, a fleeting brush that leaves the hairs standing and the skin tingling, as though the past itself is reaching out. The frozen river reflects the spectral movements of the village. Shadows seem to glide across the surface, disappearing into the ice as quickly as they appear. The river holds a strange beauty, a mirror to the haunting stillness of Shagaluk. The combination of snow, ice, and silent figures gives the village an otherworldly presence. where time feels suspended and the past is ever near. Even during the day, Shagaluk maintains its eerie allure. Sunlight glints off ice-covered roofs and snow-draped streets, casting stark shadows that shift with every passing cloud. The sound of wind over the frozen landscape carries whispers and creaks, and the sensation of unseen observers follows those who walk the empty paths. Each building, each corner, each shadowed doorway seems to hold a story, lingering from a time when life animated the village. Lingering from a time when life animated the village. Visitors to Shagaluk leave with a sense of both awe and unease. The village is a place where history is tangible, where the presence of those who once lived and worked along the river remains palpable. The drifting figures, the echoes of voices, and the cold touch of unseen hands remind all who enter that Shagaluk is far from empty. Every cabin, every path, and every shadow contributes to the village's haunting story, where the river reflects both beauty and mystery, and where the remnants of life continue to drift silently along snow-laden streets. Shagaluk endures as a frozen echo, a village where the past and present coexist, and where the unknown continues to move quietly alongside the living. Central sits quietly beneath the shadow of rugged mountains, an old gold mining village frozen in time. Snow drifts across deserted streets, covering the wooden walkways and rooftops of buildings abandoned decades ago. The wind sweeps through broken windows and warped doorframes, carrying the echoes of a laborious past that never fully left. Buildings grown under snow and ice. Each structure tells a story of hardship, ambition, and resilience. The faintest sound can seem alive in the cold, still air, and visitors often pause, sensing the weight of history in every corner. The village itself feels conscious, as if the town holds memories within its weathered bones. Ghostly miners appear along deserted pathways. In the dim light of early morning or the silvery glow of moonlight, figures emerge briefly from the shadows. Clad in the attire of decades past, they move with purpose along the snow-covered streets, their faces hidden, their presence undeniable. Sometimes they pause, gazing at passers-by with unseen eyes, and then vanish, leaving only the soft crunch of snow and the whisper of the wind. Leaving only the soft crunch of snow and the whisper of the wind. The town streets are narrow and lined with structures built for endurance. Former saloons, homes, and mining offices stand in stark contrast to the surrounding wilderness. The snow muffles every step, heightening the sense of isolation. Every shadow feels alive, and those who explore often describe the sensation of being watched, though no one is there. It is as if the village itself is breathing, its spectral resonance drifting just out of reach. Inside the buildings, the effect is even stronger. Dust lingers in beams of light, filtering through broken windows. Rusted tools and machinery sit where they were abandoned, frozen in the moment of their last use. Wooden floors sag under the weight of snow and ice, and the air carries the cold scent of metal and timber. Visitors often report hearing faint echoes of conversations and laughter, fragments of a bustling past that still lingers in these empty spaces. The mining structures hold an almost tangible presence. Shafts descend into darkness, and equipment creaks with the settling of the earth. Shadows seem to move along walls, and faint glimmers of light suggest forms that are not entirely of this world. The deeper into the village one ventures, the stronger the feeling that the miners' spirits remain tethered to place where they worked tirelessly and dreamed endlessly. Winter nights in Central are hauntingly beautiful. Snow swirls in gusts that sweep across the streets, forming patterns that seem like footprints. The wind carries distant sounds that could be the scrape of a pickaxe or the faint thud of boots. Figures appear near old cabins and mining offices, lingering for a moment before dissolving into the darkness. The village seems to bend time. Minutes stretch and compress, and the present mingles with echoes of the past. Every building, every pathway, every shadow holds layers of memory. Empty kitchens, rusted beds, and forgotten tools evoke a vivid sense of presence. Central is more than a collection of abandoned structures. It is a living memory, a place where the essence of those who lived and labored there continues to linger. The natural surroundings amplify the haunting atmosphere. Mountains and forests encircle the town, creating an almost otherworldly isolation. Howling winds carry distant sounds that blend with the imagination, and moonlight reflecting off the snow creates illusions of movement where none exists. The combination of wilderness and human decay fosters a sense of timelessness and a presence both subtle and overwhelming. Exploring Central is like stepping into a world where history and spirit converge. Each building and shadow tells a story. Ghostly miners drift along snow-laden pathways, figures linger near cabins, and whispers echo through deserted halls. The town is beautiful in its stillness and unsettling in its quiet, a frozen testament to ambition, hardship, and the indelible mark of human endeavor. As night deepens, the wind rises and the village seems to exhale. Shadows stretch across the streets, icy gusts strike unexpectedly, and the faint echoes of laughter and labor drift through the cold air. The town is a place where the past remains alive, a spectral memory etched into snow and timber, waiting for those who dare to witness its quiet, enduring spirit. In Central, the gold that once drew men here has long vanished, yet the essence of their lives, their toil, and their restless energy remain. Where the spirits of miners continue to walk the streets, their stories intertwine with a frozen village that refuses to be forgotten. Candle is a coastal village that seems suspended in time, where the rhythm of the sea once dictated life, and now only echoes remain. The coastline stretches with icy rocks and frost-covered sands, while abandoned docks reach out to waters that no longer carry the life they once did. The village is quiet, yet beneath the stillness lies a presence that is palpable, lingering in the spaces between buildings, streets, and the frozen shoreline. Figures appear near the abandoned docks, moving with a stillness that is both subtle and unnerving. Their forms are indistinct, often glimpsed from the corner of the eye before vanishing into the shadows. Visitors walking along the icy paths report feeling observed, a quiet awareness that the village is not entirely empty. These figures do not move like ordinary humans. Their motions are slow, deliberate, as though they are bound to the place itself. The creak of boats echoes through the cold air, though no vessels float on the frozen waters. The sound drifts across the docks and lingers in the silence, each groan and shudder amplified by the icy environment. Observers pause, listening intently, feeling the weight of history pressing against the present. The phenomenon is subtle, yet unmistakable, as if the village itself recalls the comings and goings of its former inhabitants. Shadows move across icy streets, stretching and bending in the pale light of early morning or late afternoon. Buildings, weathered by wind and salt, cast long shapes that shift in ways that defy expectation. Every alleyway and narrow lane seems alive with quiet movement, a reminder that Candle is more than a collection of structures, a space where memory, history, and the unseen converge. Walking to the village, visitors sense an invisible current connecting every building, dock, and street. The air is crisp and carries faint scents of the sea mixed with cold, lingering fog. Every step taken produces sounds that echo in unexpected ways, footsteps crunching against snow and ice, occasionally accompanied by distant whispers or the rustle of something moving just out of sight. These subtle cues heighten awareness, drawing attention to the layers of presence woven into the village. The architecture of Candle enhances its mysterious atmosphere. Wooden cottages and small shops, many long abandoned, stand with windows frosted over and doors weathered by years of neglect. The spaces between buildings create corridors for wind and sound, carrying faint echoes and whispers across streets that have seen little human activity in decades. Icy docks provide some of the most striking encounters. Figures are seen pacing along the edges, pausing as though listening, before disappearing into the shadows of the harbor. Boats, once essential to life here, now sit frozen or have long since been claimed by decay. The faint creaking of wood and metal in the cold suggests movement, though careful observation reveals no source. It is an experience that leaves visitors questioning perception, blending history with the subtle influence of the unseen. Shadows continue to play a prominent role in the Villagia-esque character. In the narrow streets and along the shoreline, they move independently of light, stretching, bending, and shifting in ways that seem deliberate. The interplay of shadow and frost creates an environment that is visually striking and psychologically compelling. Observers find themselves attentive to every change in light or movement, aware that candle holds more than meets the eye. Visitors often report a sensation of cold brushing across their skin, a sudden chill that seems out of place even in the already frigid air. Icy touches, fleeting yet unmistakable, accompany the movement of unseen presences. The effect is never threatening, but it is powerful enough to draw attention and create a heightened state of awareness. Each experience reinforces a sense that the village is alive in its own quiet, mysterious way. The auditory elements of Candle are just as compelling as the visual. The soft creak of doors, the rustle of wind across frozen surfaces, and the distant cries of seabirds create a layered soundscape that feels alive. Whispers carry from empty homes and abandoned shops, indistinct but present, adding to the sense that memory persists alongside the physical environment. Visitors are left with an impression that the village itself remembers, holding on to fragments of lives that once moved through its streets and docks. Visitors are left with an impression that the village itself remembers, holding on to fragments of lives that once moved through its streets and docks. Walking the village at night or during the dim hours of twilight enhances the experience. Figures appear near the water and along icy pathways, and shadows stretch across narrow streets, and sudden chills make the air feel charged. The combination of wind, ice, and subtle movement produces an environment that is immersive and reflective. Each element of visual, auditory, and tactilia works together to create a sense of Candle as a living memory frozen in time. Each element of visual, auditory, and tactilia works together to create a sense of Candle as a living memory frozen in time. Candle is not a place of danger, but of quiet reflection and curiosity. Its frozen docks, icy streets, shadowy figures, and subtle whispers create a hauntingly immersive atmosphere. Visitors are invited to observe carefully, to notice the interplay of history, environment, and unseen presence. And to reflect on the layers of life that continue to inhabit the village in ways that defy ordinary perception. As the cold night deepens, the village embraces its silent narrative. Figures drift across frozen paths, shadows shift across the streets, and whispers carry from the empty homes along the shoreline. The experience leaves visitors with a lasting awareness that Candle exists beyond the ordinary, a coastal village suspended in time, where memory, presence, and the unseen coexist. In quiet harmony, the village remains alive, its story told through shadow, ice, and the subtle impressions left on those willing to witness its mysteries. Wiseman sits at the edge of the frozen Arctic landscape, a remote settlement where the environment is as harsh as it is unforgiving. The isolation is profound, and yet there are whispers that the area holds more than just the cold. Shadows and lights hint at the presence of those who may never have truly left. Visitors report seeing lights flickering inside cabins that appear empty. Some swear the lights move from window to window, as if unseen occupants wander the interiors. Approaching the cabins often reveals nothing, and the stillness of the snow-covered ground suggests no one has been there for years. Figures drift along the frozen roads, visible for brief moments before disappearing suddenly. Shapes glide across the landscape with an almost ethereal quality, leaving no footprints behind. The sight of them instills a mixture of awe and unease, as if the past is reaching across time to meet the present. The wind carries sounds that seem to come from nowhere, faint murmurs and whispers that echo across the plains, barely audible yet unmistakably human. The environment itself amplifies the mystery. The snow reflects moonlight in a way that creates long, shifting shadows. Trees, sparse and skeletal, sway silently, casting their spindly forms across frozen surfaces. Every sound is magnified to the crunch of snow underfoot, the sudden crack of ice, or the moan of the wind against cabin walls. It is a landscape that feels alive, both beautiful and threatening, where the boundaries between natural and supernatural blur. Inside some of the abandoned structures, traces of former life remain. Rusted tools, worn furniture, and scattered personal items hint at the human presence that once animated this place. Each object carries a story, a fragment of memory preserved against the cold. Occasionally, doors creak or floors groan with no apparent cause, as if the buildings themselves remember the lives that once moved within them. Visitors often speak of feeling of being watched, an invisible presence that moves just beyond their vision. Even in broad daylight, the quiet stretches of frozen land can feel ominous, as if the snow itself hides eyes that follow every step. Some report fleeting glimpses of figures standing silently in the distance, only to vanish when observed directly. The effect is disorienting and haunting, reinforcing the sense that Wiseman is a place where the present and the past coexist uneasily. The frozen river near the settlement reflects pale light, shimmering in irregular patterns that suggest movement beneath the ice. Snowdrifts form strange shapes, sometimes resembling figures or faces, creating illusions that heighten the sense of mystery. The occasional ripple or crack adds to the eerie ambience, as though something just below the surface is stirring. In Wiseman, reality often seems to shift, leaving observers questioning what is real and what is not. The night deepens a sense of unease and fascination. Shadows stretch and blend, and the aurora may dance overhead, illuminating the landscape with otherworldly colors. The sky, clear and vast, reflects on the snow, turning the world into a surreal scene of light and dark. Sounds of distant wildlife mix with the natural creaking of ice, producing an environment where the ordinary becomes extraordinary, and the boundary between life and lingering memory grows thin. Wiseman is more than a remote settlement. It is a place where time seems to pause, where the past is palpable in every frozen corner. The lights in empty cabins, the drifting figures, and the whispers carried on the wind all contribute to an atmosphere that is haunting and unforgettable. Visitors leave with a sense of having glimpsed something beyond ordinary perception, an encounter with the unseen that lingers long after they depart. Even in its desolation, Wiseman tells a story. It is a story of human survival in extreme conditions, of lives that have come and gone, and of memories that refuse to be erased. The frozen roads, the isolated cabins, and the quiet, expansive plains are witnesses to the passage of time, holding within them traces of those who lived, and perhaps still linger, in this harsh and beautiful corner of the world. For those who journey to Wiseman, the experience is both humbling and unsettling. The settlement challenges perception, blending the natural with the spectral in a landscape that is stark, silent, and endlessly mysterious. The lights, shadows, and whispers serve as a reminder that even in the most remote corners of the world, echoes of the past endure, waiting for those who venture far enough to witness them. Wiseman remains a testament to isolation and mystery, a place where the harshness of the Arctic intertwines with the lingering presence of those who came before. The frozen plains, the drifting figures, and the unexplained lights create an environment where the ordinary and the extraordinary meet. Mohall lies quiet beneath thick blankets of snow, a village where time seems to have stopped. Streets are empty, lined with cabins and homes half buried in drifts. The wind carries a biting chill, cutting through layers of clothing and settling into the bones of anyone who wanders these abandoned paths. Shadowy figures stand silently at windows. Their shapes are indistinct, sometimes glimpsed as fleeting silhouettes against frosted glass. Observers often feel the weight of unseen eyes, as though history itself lingers behind the glass, observing and waiting. Footsteps echo in abandoned halls. Wooden floors, long unused, respond to the softest pressure, amplifying each step into a hollow sound that resonates through empty buildings. Occasionally, visitors report footsteps that do not belong to them, a rhythmic tapping that seems to follow them from room to room, before fading into silence. The effect is disorienting, as though the village itself is alive, breathing and moving in its frozen stillness. Some feel icy hands brush against them unexpectedly. These touches are fleeting yet vivid, leaving chills along the spine and an awareness of forces unseen. The sensation seems to come from nowhere, brushing through coats or gloves as though passing through solid matter. It is the kind of presence that is felt more than seen, a subtle acknowledgement that the village carries more than history in its snow-laden streets. Cabins and homes stand weathered and frost-covered. Roofs sag under the weight of years and snow, and doors hang slightly askew. Windows are opaque with frost, hiding interiors where the remnants of daily life linger. Furniture is tipped or scattered, frozen in the midst of actions long past. Shelves hold dust-laden objects. Tools once used lie abandoned, as if their owners might return at any moment, though decades may have passed. The streets twist and curve, partially hidden by snowdrifts. Footpaths that once connected neighbors now vanish beneath layers of ice and snow. The wind carries sounds that are difficult to place: creaking timber, distant calls, or faint echoes that vanish as quickly as they appear. Each step feels amplified. The crunch of snow beneath boots a reminder of the stillness surrounding those who explore the village. At night, Mohall transforms into a landscape of shadows and mystery. Moonlight glimmers off snow-covered roofs, casting long, eerie shapes across the village. Figures are glimpsed in doorways and along streets, appearing for a moment and vanishing into the darkness. The wind carries whispers, indecipherable yet distinct, adding to the sense of lingering presence. Visitors often describe a feeling of being watched, an almost tangible awareness that the past remains close. Buildings that have endured years of cold and isolation seem to hold memory within their walls. Doors creak and swing unexpectedly, responding to nothing visible. Steps echo in hallways that have long been unused. And sometimes a faint light flickers in windows that have been dark for decades. These phenomena combine to create an atmosphere thick with tension, a mixture of awe and unease that is difficult to shake. The surrounding landscape contributes to the village's haunting stillness. The silence is profound, broken only by the occasional rustle of wind or the distant sound of ice shifting on the outskirts of town. It is a silence that feels alive, as if the environment itself holds memories of life that once thrived here. Visitors who explore Mohall leave with a sense of reverence and caution. The village is a place where history lingers tangibly, where the presence of those who lived here continues to echo. The shadowy figures, the fleeting touches, and the footsteps that follow with no visible source remind all who enter that Mohall is more than a deserted village. It is a living memory suspended in snow and time. Every cabin, every pathway, and every window contributes to the village's eerie narrative. The snow amplifies every sound, every movement, and every shadow. The frozen landscape preserves both the physical structures and a lingering presence of the past, creating a village that is silent yet full of stories, a place where the ordinary and the supernatural coexist quietly. Mohall endures as a frozen echo of life, a place where the line between memory and presence blurs. Figures appear and vanish. Whispers drift along the snow-laden streets. And icy touches remind visitors that the village carries the weight of those who came before. It is a haunting yet captivating place, a testament to the endurance of history and the persistence of what lingers beyond the visible. Hyder lies quiet beneath a heavy sky, its frozen rivers cutting through a land long abandoned. Homes once filled with life now sag under snow and ice, their walls cracked and roofs bowed from years of neglect. Every structure tells a story of endurance, hardship, and sudden absence, a silent testament to a community that vanished with the cold. Abandoned homes tell a chilling story. Windows, frosted and shattered, reveal empty rooms where laughter and warmth once resided. The wind slips through broken doorways, carrying the memory of daily life now vanished. Footsteps echo on snow-covered porches, though no one walks there. And the faintest sigh of a breeze through a broken chimney can sound like a voice. Every corner of Hyder seems alive with the weight of memory, holding echoes that refuse to fade. Figures appear near frozen rivers. Travelers and visitors have reported fleeting forms along the ice, shadows that move with purpose yet vanish when approached. They drift silently, appearing as if tethered to the landscape itself. Reflections shimmer on the frozen surface, hinting at shapes that cannot be explained. The cold air makes each sighting sharper, each movement more haunting, as if the river remembers the lives that once relied on its currents. Lights flicker with no source. In homes long dark, faint glows appear behind frosted glass panes. Sometimes these lights move from room to room, casting shadows across peeling walls and broken furniture. Visitors describe the sensation of being watched, a presence just beyond comprehension. The flickering lights seem almost sentient, reminders that the past is never truly gone. The natural environment of Hyder adds to its eerie atmosphere. Wind whistles through the empty streets, carrying whispers that could be imagined or real. The frozen rivers glisten in pale sunlight, their surfaces silent yet full of latent energy. Every gust of wind feels deliberate, a gentle nudge that reminds visitors they are intruding in a place frozen in both time and memory. Exploring the town reveals its stories in fragments. A tilted fence marks the boundary of a once cared-for garden. Rusted tools sit where they were left decades ago. Doorways lead to empty rooms where furniture has rotted or collapsed. The scent of old wood and frost fills the air. Every detail suggests a life interrupted, a community abandoned, yet not entirely gone. Visitors often feel cold touches or sudden chills. The temperature drops inexplicably near certain homes or riverbanks, making the hair on the back of the neck rise. Soft sounds accompany these sensations, whispers or muted footsteps that seem to circle the observer before fading into the wind. The isolation of the place amplifies every sensory detail, making the presence of unseen figures more tangible and the experience more immersive. The frozen rivers themselves are more than natural features. Shadows move across the ice, sometimes taking human shapes, sometimes merely suggesting movement. Reflections in the ice hint at forms no longer present. At night, the river mirrors the stars and the faint glow of distant lights, creating an otherworldly landscape where reality and imagination overlap. It is easy to believe that the river holds stories of past life, sorrow, and lingering spirits, each waiting for someone to notice. Hyder streets are narrow, lined with decaying houses that once hosted families, shops, and gatherings. The snow softens each step, but it also heightens a sense of abandonment. Each building has its own character, as if the structure itself holds memories of those who lived there. Doors swing on broken hinges, floors creak under unseen weight, and shadows seem to stretch longer than they should. Even in daylight, the town exudes a haunting presence that draws visitors in and holds them captive in its frozen silence. The town's atmosphere changes with the time of day. Evening casts long shadows, and every flicker of movement or light seems more deliberate. Night brings a heightened sense of mystery, when the cold intensifies, and whispers carried on the wind seem to have voices. Hyder transforms with each passing hour, offering an experience that is both chilling and beautiful, a glimpse into a past that is frozen yet alive. Walking through Hyder is like traversing a memory. Figures appear and vanish. Lights flicker, whispers float across the frozen landscape, and the air feels charged with stories. Each abandoned home, each frozen river, and each drifting shadow tells of lives once lived, of moments that remain etched into the cold and snow. Of lives once lived, of moments that remain etched into the cold and snow. The town is a place where history is tangible, where the past interacts with the present, and where visitors cannot help but feel that they are part of a story far larger than themselves. In Hyder, time has stopped, but life is not entirely left. Every frozen river, every empty home, every flicker of light or whisper on the wind carries the imprint of human presence. The town stands as a testament to endurance, memory, and the lingering energy of those who once called a home. It is a place where the line between the living and the departed blurs, where the cold carries voices, and where the past waits silently for anyone willing to witness it. Wiseman Creek Settlement is a place where time seems to have stopped, a village deserted for decades and reclaimed by the relentless forces of nature. The wind sweeps across the frozen expanse, carrying with a stillness that is both beautiful and haunting, and every footstep taken seems amplified against the quiet of the abandoned settlement. Ghostly shapes drift through snow-laden paths, moving with a deliberate slowness that defies explanation. These figures are faint at first, glimpsed only from the corner of the eye, and vanish when approached. Their presence is subtle yet undeniable, leaving an impression that Wiseman Creek is not entirely empty. Each appearance creates a sense of curiosity and tension, as if the settlement itself remembers the lives that once animated its streets and homes. Footsteps echo in empty halls, crisp and precise against the wooden floors of buildings long abandoned. Observers walking to the settlement often pause, straining to hear more, yet no one is visible. The sound seems to follow, fading into silence only to return unexpectedly, as if the echoes of past inhabitants linger, trapped in the architecture itself. The experience is immersive, blending the physical with the unseen and encouraging attention to every subtle movement and sound. Shadows move across the settlement, stretching along walls and winding through the trees surrounding the village. Some observers see shapes pause at the edges of open windows, only to vanish when they attempt to focus. The interplay of light, shadow, and snow creates a surreal environment where perception and memory intertwine. The longer one walks through Wiseman Creek, the more the village seems alive in its own spectral way, offering glimpses of stories long forgotten. The architecture of Wiseman Creek enhances its mysterious atmosphere. Wooden cabins, small stores, and workshops stand weathered by decades of exposure. Roofs sag under the weight of snow. Windows are frost-covered or broken. Doors hang slightly ajar as if awaiting the return of their occupants. Every structure tells a story, preserving the memory of those who once lived here, while offering a tangible connection to the past for modern visitors. Walking the village at twilight transforms the experience. Shadows lengthen along snow-covered streets, and the fading light casts a cold glow on abandoned buildings. Figures appear near doorways, along pathways, and at the edges of the forest, their movements subtle yet compelling. Each observation heightens the sense of presence, leaving visitors with the feeling that the settlement holds more than its physical remnants. It holds fragments of life that continue to linger. The natural environment surrounding Wiseman Creek contributes to its haunting character. Trees stand bare and skeletal against the winter sky, their branches swaying with the wind and creating fleeting patterns of light and shadow. Snowdrifts carve the landscape into silent corridors, guiding observers through a maze of frozen streets and pathways. The combination of wind, frost, and subtle movements creates a sensory experience that is both serene and uncanny, drawing attention to every sound, shadow, and shift in the landscape. Inside the abandoned structures, the silence is profound. Doors creak under the weight of wind or snow, and loose floorboards produce unexpected noises. Cold spots form near windows and along hallways, brief but unmistakable. A reminder that the settlement is more than a collection of empty buildings. Wiseman Creek seems to interact with those who wander through it, creating a connection that is at once unsettling and captivating. Whispers carry faintly through the trees and along empty paths. Soft and almost imperceptible, they drift across the snow, rising and falling as if echoing from another time. Names, fragments of conversation, or the rustle of unseen movement are carried to visitors in fleeting moments, prompting reflection and careful attention. The auditory experience blends seamlessly with visual cues, creating an atmosphere that is immersive and charged with quiet tension. As night falls, Wiseman Creek becomes an otherworldly landscape of snow, shadow, and subtle motion. Ghostly figures drift through the streets. Footsteps echo in empty halls, and shadows vanish into the trees with fluidity that defies explanation. The settlement transforms into a living memory, a place where history, environment, and unseen presence converge to create an unforgettable experience. Visitors leave Wiseman Creek with a sense of reverence and wonder. The village is not merely a deserted collection of buildings, but a space where echoes of the past persist, waiting to be noticed by those willing to observe closely. The snow-laden paths, drifting figures, and fleeting whispers combine to create a hauntingly immersive environment. Wiseman Creek settlement endures as a quiet testament to the lives that once thrived here, preserving their presence in the shifting patterns of shadow, sound, and ice, in every frozen doorway, along every empty street, and through every grove of skeletal trees. Wiseman Creek continues its silent story. The ghostly shapes, echoing footsteps, and vanishing shadows invite visitors to experience the settlement in a way that is both contemplative and deeply atmospheric. It is a place where the past lingers in tangible ways, a frozen village that quietly preserves the memory of all who once called it home. Anvik lies quietly beneath heavy blankets of snow, a village isolated by the relentless winter landscape. The frozen Yukon River curves past the settlement, its surface glinting under the weak sun of the Arctic sky. Winds carry a biting chill, sweeping across the plains and through narrow pathways between cabins. Visitors have reported seeing figures at cabin windows. The figures are silhouettes that vanish when approached. Sometimes the shapes are fleeting, a shadow crossing the frosted glass. Other times more distinct, as if someone is watching silently from within. The figures are never threatening, yet their presence creates an unmistakable tension, a feeling that the village is alive with unseen observers. Whispers travel along the frozen walkways. The wind seems to carry voices from no particular source. Soft murmurs echo in the empty spaces between buildings. Some say the whispers call their names or recount fragments of conversations long past. The phenomenon is subtle at first, almost imperceptible, but grows more pronounced as night falls and the darkness deepens. Doors open on their own in some cabins, swinging slowly as if moved by invisible hands. Those who witness it describe the movement as deliberate, a quiet invitation, or perhaps a warning. The creak of hinges and the soft thud of closing would break the eerie silence, emphasizing the isolation and heightening the sense that Anvik harbors secrets unseen by the outside world. The village streets are narrow and lined with snow-laden cabins, their wooden facades weathered by years of Arctic storms. Each home carries traces of past life, from worn steps to old tools left outside. The snow enhances a sense of stillness, muffling footsteps and making the smallest sounds resonate. Every noise feels magnified, from the crunch of boots on icy paths to the distant call of wildlife, blending with the inexplicable phenomena to create an atmosphere thick with mystery. Light in Anvik is scarce, especially during the long winter nights. The moon casts a pale glow over the snow, illuminating figures and shadows with an ethereal touch. Candlelight or lanterns flicker inside some cabins. Yet even when interiors are unlit, there are reports of glowing windows or soft radiance, as if unseen occupants are moving about within. The effect is subtle and unsettling, a faint reminder of life that may no longer exist in conventional form. The frozen river nearby contributes to the haunting ambience. Its surface reflects muted colors of sky, distorted by thin sheets of ice and shifting snowdrifts. The occasional crack of ice reverberates across the village, startling in the quiet, and sometimes seems synchronized with the flickering lights or drifting figures, lending the environment an uncanny rhythm. Visitors describe a sensation of being watched, an invisible presence that follows them from cabin to cabin. Even in broad daylight, the village seems to hold its breath, and the boundaries between reality and perception blur. Shadows lengthen and twist in unexpected ways, while snowdrifts occasionally form shapes that resemble figures or faces, fleeting and deceptive, yet compelling in the suggestion of lingering spirits. In some cabins, remnants of past inhabitants remain. Scattered personal items, worn furniture, and rusted tools create a sense of continuity, as if life in Anvik never fully ended. The phenomenon reinforces the sense that the village remembers, holding on to traces of those who once walked its streets. Nightfall amplifies the haunting beauty of Anvik. Stars sparkle above in a clear Arctic sky, their light reflecting on the snow to create a surreal landscape. Shadows deepen, and the wind carries whispers that seem to come closer, surrounding visitors with an almost tangible presence. Figures appear more readily in the darkness, drifting silently along walkways or vanishing into the snowdrifts, leaving no trace behind. The interplay of light, shadow, and sound creates an immersive atmosphere. The snow muffles the ordinary while amplifying the extraordinary, turning every flicker of movement and every distant sound into a potential encounter with the unseen. The frozen village becomes a living entity, preserving memories, stories, and perhaps echoes of those who linger in the state between life and what comes after. Andvik is a place where time feels suspended. The isolation, the snow, and the haunting phenomena combine to create an environment both beautiful and unsettling. Visitors leave with a sense of having glimpsed something beyond the ordinary, touched by the subtle presence of the past. The lights, the whispers, the drifting figurisa all contribute to a narrative of mystery that persists long after the snow has melted and travelers have departed. Even in its silence, Andvik speaks. It tells stories of life and endurance in extreme conditions, of moments frozen in time, and of unseen presences that continue to observe and interact with those who enter. Every cabin, every walkway, every flicker of light adds to the tapestry of experience, inviting those who visit to witness a world where the line between the living and the lingering is as delicate and shifting as the snow itself. In Andvik, the ordinary becomes extraordinary. The village remains a testament to the Arctic wilderness, human resilience, and the subtle traces of lives that continue to echo across the frozen landscape. Visitors leave carrying the weight of what they have seen and felt, forever touched by the quiet, haunting presence of a place that is at once remote, beautiful, and undeniably alive with unseen observers. McCarthy sits quietly beneath towering mountains, a town frozen in the shadow of its own history. Once alive with the clamor of mining, the streets are now empty, lined with weathered buildings that lean against the harsh Alaskan winds. Shadowy miners drift across deserted streets. Their figures appear at the edges of vision, sometimes glimpsed moving through doorways or along the rutted paths where wagons once carried ore. They leave no footprints, yet their presence is palpable, a silent reminder of the labor and lives that shaped this remote settlement. Visitors often feel as though the town itself is alive, holding memories in every timbered wall and rusted nail. Lights flicker in abandoned buildings. Windows, long coated in frost and dust, sometimes glow with sudden, eerie illumination. These lights appear without source, flickering and fading as if the buildings themselves remember nights long past. Visitors feel sudden chills and icy touches. Even on days that are not bitterly cold, a sharp gust of cold can sweep through an empty hall or corridor, leaving a shiver in its wake. The sensation is unnerving. Some report brushes against their arms or shoulders, fleeting and intangible, a touch that seems carried from another time. The sensation is unsettling, leaving a lingering sense that the past is not entirely gone. Buildings are scattered and worn, each telling its own story. Wooden structures lean against each other for support, their paint peeled and faded by decades of weather. Doors hang loosely on their hinges, some ajar as though inviting visitors to enter, while others creak mysteriously, opening and closing without wind or human presence. Inside, remnants of life remain at chairs tipped over, tools on workbenches, and personal items frozen in time. The streets wind through the town, narrow and uneven, carrying the echoes of footsteps from long ago. Occasionally, a sound error sees some metal striking stone, the soft groan of timber, or the distant call of wild lithia, but it is often difficult to distinguish from the murmurs of the unseen. At night, McCarthy becomes even more enigmatic. Moonlight reflects off icy surfaces, casting long shadows that appear to move independently. Figures can be glimpsed at windows or drifting along the streets, visible for only a moment before vanishing into the darkness. The wind carries soft whispers, unintelligible yet present, brushing across the ears of anyone who dares to explore the town after dusk. The surrounding landscape amplifies the town's isolation. Towering mountains loom, snow-capped and imposing, while frozen rivers wind silently through the valley. The cold, crisp air carries the scent of pine and ice. And every step on the frozen ground seems to echo farther than it should. It is an environment that magnifies the eerie presence, making every shadow, every flicker of light, and every unexpected chill feel more intense. Visitors often leave McCarthy with a sense of awe and unease. The town is a place where history is not confined to books or photographs. It exists tangibly in the buildings, streets, and lingering presences that occupy the area. Shadowy figures, flickering lights, and sudden chills all serve as reminders that the memories of those who labored and lived here remain, quietly haunting a place frozen in time. Each building, each street, and each corner contributes to the town's unique atmosphere. The wind sweeping through alleyways seems to carry voices from the past. The snow muffles most sounds, yet amplifies others, making each creak, groan, or distant murmur feel deliberate. McCarthy is not just a ghost town. It is a repository of lives and stories, preserved by isolation, climate, and the echoes of history. As visitors explore, they encounter a delicate balance between beauty and desolation. The remnants of a once thriving mining town evoke admiration for human resilience and craftsmanship, yet the emptiness and ghostly impressions serve as a stark reminder of impermanence. Shadows move, lights flicker, and icy touches remind all who enter that McCarthy is more than abandoned buildings. It is a living memory, a place where the past brushes against the present in subtle, haunting ways. McCarthy endures as a silent witness to its own history. Figures appear and vanish in the corners of perception. Lights flicker in buildings left untouched for decades. Sudden chills sweep through hallways, leaving a reminder that the town is inhabited not by the living, but by echoes, memories, and remnants of lives once vibrant. It is a place where history and haunting converge, offering an experience that is both captivating and unsettling. A true testament to the enduring presence of the past. Slana lies buried beneath thick layers of snow, its silent streets and frozen fields telling a story of abandonment and resilience. The village is small, isolated, and overtaken by winter's relentless grip, leaving behind empty cabins and snow-laden roofs that creak under the weight of years. Every structure, from the simplest home to the weathered barns, holds a memory of life long past, a reminder that once this place thrived and now is claimed by ice and silence. Figures appear in abandoned cabins. Travelers who dare venture here report fleeting forms moving behind frost-covered windows or just beyond the thresholds of broken doors. Shadows drift across rooms, pause as if aware of observers, and then vanish without a trace. Each sighting is brief yet unforgettable, leaving those who witness them with a sense of being watched and followed by a presence that refuses to leave the village entirely. Whispers carry across snow-covered fields. The wind itself seems alive, carrying soft sounds that are difficult to identify. Some hear voices calling out names, others the murmur of conversations long ended. The emptiness of the village amplifies these sounds, turning every subtle noise into a moment of tension. Even the crunch of snow beneath Onia's own feet can seem exaggerated, as though the earth itself is aware of visitors wandering where only memories remain. The frozen streams winding through Slana enhance its spectral atmosphere. The water beneath the ice moves silently, reflecting the pale winter sun during the day, and the faint glow of stars at night. Shadows vanish near these streams, disappearing into the white expanse as though the ice itself swallows them. Observers often feel a presence when standing by the frozen water, a subtle pull that makes the hair on the back of the neck rise. It is as if the village's history lingers in the currents beneath the ice, quietly watching, patiently waiting. Snow adds both beauty and menace to the village. It muffles sound and softens edges, but also isolates every structure, creating the sense that visitors are intruding in a world separate from their own. Every step is deliberate, measured, because the terrain is deceptive and the emptiness overwhelming. The wind carries fragments of memory, brushing against the faces of those who explore Slana, bringing with it chills and the faintest sense of footsteps just behind. Abandoned cabins reveal fragments of the lives that once thrived here. Rusted tools lie where they were last used. Furniture remains, rotting or broken, yet arranged as though expecting someone to return. The interiors are frozen in time, with the faintest echo of activity lingering in the walls and floors. Each detail tells a story. Meals once shared, conversations that faded into silence, and a community that now exists only in shadows and whispers. Figures seen in the village are often brief and difficult to define. Some appear at windows, standing silently, gazing outward without motion. Others move along the streets, vanishing when approached, leaving no footprints in the fresh snow. These apparitions are neither threatening nor welcoming. They are reminders, subtle but persistent, that the essence of Slana is more than empty cabins and snow. Life here has been transformed, yet it has not entirely departed. Visitors often feel sudden changes in temperature, cold spots that strike without warning. These chills are accompanied by a sense of being observed, of unseen eyes tracking movement. Whispers grow louder near certain cabins, as though the snow amplifies the voices of the past. Even the quietest moments are filled with anticipation, the air thick with presence, and the landscape itself seems aware of those who traverse its frozen expanses. The interplay of light and shadow in Slana is striking. During daylight, sunlight reflects off snow and ice, creating illusions of movement along the edges of buildings and trees. At dusk, shadows stretch long across the village, blending with darkness to make every figure or shape ambiguous. Night transforms the village completely. When moonlight glints on frozen streams and roofs, and whispers carried on the wind become most audible. It is then that Slana feels closest to the life it once held, yet most haunted by its absence. Walking through Slana is an experience of both beauty and unease. Each frozen street, each abandoned cabin, and each drifting shadow creates a narrative of life interrupted. Figures appear and vanish. Whispers traverse the snow, and the cold touches more than the skin. It touches the mind. The village exists in a delicate balance between past and present, where memory is tangible and the unseen is ever present. In Slana, the snow and silence do more than conceal. They preserve. The village holds the echoes of human presence, the subtle movements of those who may no longer walk among the living, and the memory of a community overtaken by time and winter. Every cabin, every frozen stream, every drifting shadow reminds visitors that they are in a place where history is alive, where the past and present coexist, and where the spirit of the village endures, quietly watching and waiting. Bettles is a remote settlement tucked deep within the Alaskan wilderness, a place where isolation shapes the landscape, and every step feels both serene and unnerving. Snow and ice dominate the environment, blanketing the frozen ground and stretching across endless paths that wind between sparse buildings. The settlement exists in quiet solitude, removed from the world beyond, yet it is not entirely silent. Subtle movements, whispers, and the presence of the unseen create an atmosphere that feels alive with memory and mystery. Visitors report figures walking along frozen paths, appearing briefly before vanishing into the icy landscape. These forms move with an ethereal grace, almost imperceptible, yet undeniably present. They seem to glide across the snow rather than tread upon it, a fleeting glimpse of something that once belonged to the village or perhaps has always existed in its shadow. Each encounter heightens a sense that Bettles is more than a geographic location. It is a space where the past and present coexist in subtle, haunting ways. Faint voices call out names from the distance, drifting across snow-covered fields and frozen streets. They are not loud or threatening, but they carry a resonance that lingers in the mind. The sound of these whispers is fragmented, rising and falling with the wind, sometimes just at the edge of perception. These auditory experiences blend with the stillness of the landscape to create an immersive sense of presence. Cold spots appear unexpectedly within abandoned homes, chilling the air even beyond the natural winter cold. Walkers feel sudden draft against their skin, icy touches that linger for moments before dissipating. These sensations are subtle yet powerful, drawing attention to the environment and to the unseen. Each encounter reinforces a feeling that Bettles is inhabited not only by its physical structures, but also by echoes of those who once moved through its spaces. The interaction between environment and presence creates a heightened awareness of every sound, shadow, and movement. The buildings themselves contribute to the settlement's mysterious character. Wooden cabins, weathered and sagging under layers of snow, stand as silent witnesses to decades of solitude. Windows are frosted or broken, doors hang slightly ajar, and the interiors echo with emptiness. Walking to the halls, one senses a rhythm of past life, faint footsteps echoing in spaces that have long been abandoned. Each structure, though frozen in decay, carries stories and memories that shape the feeling of the village as a living archive of experiences. Snow-covered paths wind between buildings, guiding visitors through a landscape both stark and beautiful. Shadows stretch across the snow, cast by the low sun or the pale glow of moonlight. These shadows seem to move independently at times, creating an environment where perception is heightened and every motion is meaningful. Even in the quietest corners of Bettles, there is a sense of subtle activity, as if the village itself is aware of those who traverse its frozen terrain. The isolation of Bettles enhances its enigmatic atmosphere. The settlement is surrounded by forests, rivers, and endless expanses of tundra, each element reinforcing the feeling of solitude. The wind whistles through trees, brushes across rooftops, and carries distant, indistinct sounds that resemble voices or footsteps. Every natural element contributes to the immersive experience, blending with the presence of figures, whispers, and cold spots to create a setting that is both beautiful and haunting. Visitors walking the settlement at night encounter the most vivid experiences. Figures appear along paths and near abandoned cabins. Shadows stretch along streets. Whispers drift through the air. The interplay of light, sound, and movement transforms Bettles into a living memory, where the environment itself becomes part of the story. Each encounter is fleeting yet memorable, leaving a lasting impression of a place where the ordinary and the extraordinary coexist seamlessly. Inside abandoned homes, the atmosphere is charged with subtle tension. Doors creak under the weight of ice or wind, floorboards shift beneath footsteps, and icy drafts sweep through hallways. Visitors feel cold touches, sometimes on shoulders or hands, fleeting yet unmistakable. These experiences are never threatening, but they are profoundly immersive, creating a connection between the living and the unseen, between the present and the lingering past. The auditory landscape of Bettles reinforces its haunting quality. Faint voices, distant footsteps, and the creak of structures combine with the natural sounds of wind and ice. These subtle cues evoke a sense of history, memory, and presence, inviting visitors to listen carefully and engage with the environment on a deeper level. Each sound seems intentional, a reminder that Bettles exists beyond its physical reality, shaped by the echoes of its history and the impressions left by those who have walked its paths. As night deepens, Bettles becomes a realm of quiet mystery. Figures drift across snow-laden paths, shadows stretch along abandoned streets, and cold spots appear unexpectedly in empty cabins. The village, though remote and isolated, is alive with subtle presences that invite exploration and reflection. Visitors leave with an impression of settlement that transcends time, a place where the past continues to resonate through shadow, sound, and frozen landscapes. Bettles endures as a silent testament to isolation, memory, and subtle presence. Its ghostly figures, whispered voices, and icy touches create an environment that is immersive, atmospheric, and unforgettable. The frozen paths, abandoned homes, and surrounding wilderness blend to form a living experience, one that engages the senses and sparks the imagination. In every corner of Bettles, the unseen lingers, preserving the spirit of the settlement and inviting those who venture there to witness its quiet mysteries. Kaltag lies nestled along the frozen banks of the Yukon River, a village encased in ice and snow. The snow drifts across deserted streets, muffling sound and creating an atmosphere where every movement, every whisper, seems amplified. In this frozen isolation, the ordinary and extraordinary intertwine, and those who visit often report a sense of being watched. Figures drift silently along the streets, their presence subtle yet unmistakable. Shadows move past cabins and across snow-laden paths, disappearing when approached. Sometimes the figures are fleeting, glimpsed in the corner of an eye, other times more distinct, as if lingering on the threshold of the living world. Their movement is calm, almost deliberate, leaving observers with an impression that the village itself remembers and preserves fragments of lives long past. Whispers echo from abandoned cabins, carried on the wind that sweeps through Kaltag. The voices are soft, unintelligible at first, then sometimes forming the faintest of words, as if fragments of conversations remain trapped within the wooden walls. The whispers drift across open spaces, brushing against travelers, making the air feel charged with presence. Visitors often feel icy hands brush against their shoulders, an almost imperceptible touch that raises goosebumps in the frozen air. The sensation is fleeting, yet chillingly real, and seems to come from no visible source. It is a reminder that Kaltag is not entirely empty, that invisible observers move among the snow-covered structures, quietly acknowledging the presence of the living. The village streets are lined with cabins and small homes, their weathered exteriors marked by years of harsh winters. Snow piles high against the walls and roofs, creating shapes that shift and move with the wind. At night, the faint glow of lanterns or moonlight reflecting off the ice casts eerie shadows that seem to take on life of their own. Every corner, every pathway, is transformed into a stage where the unseen can appear at any moment. The frozen river nearby reflects muted light, creating a surreal, almost otherworldly glow. Ice cracks occasionally, sending vibrations to the ground that seem to synchronize with the movements of shadows and whispers. The natural sounds of Kaltag blend seamlessly with the supernatural, creating an environment where reality and imagination are difficult to separate. Within some cabins, remnants of past inhabitants remain. Tools, furniture, and personal items lie undisturbed, as if waiting for owners who never return. Footsteps are heard in rooms that appear empty, a slow pacing that begins and ends without explanation. The presence of these echoes reinforces a sense that the village is alive with memories, preserving fragments of history that refuse to fade completely. Nightfall brings an intensified sense of the extraordinary. Stars glint above in a clear Arctic sky, their light casting long, shifting shadows across snowdrifts and rooftops. Figures appear more readily in the darkness, moving silently between cabins and along pathways. Whispers grow clearer, brushing against the ears of those brave enough to walk the village at night. The cold becomes more acute, a reminder of both the physical and spectral forces at work in Kaltag. The cold becomes more acute, a reminder of both the physical and spectral forces at work in Kaltag. The interplay of light, shadow, and sound creates an immersive experience. The snow amplifies subtle movements and muffles ordinary noises, while the wind carries sound from one area to another in strange patterns. Flickering lights, drifting figures, and sudden touches combine to make every moment in Kaltag unpredictable and full of quiet tension. Visitors leave with a sense that the village itself is observing, preserving, and interacting with those who enter its frozen boundaries. Time in Kaltag feels suspended. Days and nights blur together under the weight of snow and ice, and the boundary between past and present becomes indistinct. The village holds stories of survival, isolation, and the quiet persistence of human presence. Yet these are intertwined with the unseen, the spectral, and the unknown. Each snow-covered path, each deserted cabin, is a repository of memory and mystery, inviting reflection on what remains when life seems to pause. Kaltag is a place where the extraordinary is subtle but undeniable. The frozen landscape, the echoes of the past, and the quiet movement of unseen figures create a haunting, contemplative environment. Every visitor is reminded of the fragility of human existence and the persistence of memory. As whispers, shadows, and icy touches leave a lasting impression long after the snow has melted, the village is at once beautiful, harsh, and deeply mysterious. It embodies a tension between isolation and presence, stillness and movement, the living and the lingering. In Kaltag, the ordinary is transformed, and every step through snow-laden streets becomes a journey into a world where history, memory, and spectral presence coexist. The experience is both haunting and mesmerizing, leaving those who visit with a profound sense of wonder curiosity, and respect for a place frozen in time yet alive with unseen observers. Shishmaref rests quietly on the edge of the Arctic, a village slowly emptied by the relentless encroachment of the sea and the harshness of the northern climate. The wind sweeps across the snow and ice, carrying with it the echoes of community that has mostly moved on, leaving only remnants behind. The wind sweeps across the snow and ice, carrying with it the echoes of community that has mostly moved on, leaving only remnants behind. Ghostly forms appear at night. Figures seem to drift across the frozen landscape, appearing near abandoned homes or along the shoreline. They move silently, their presence felt rather than heard, as if the memory of the people who once lived here has taken on its own quiet existence. Visitors speak of glimpses at the edges of their vision, shapes that vanish when looked at directly, leaving only the cold, empty streets behind. Some hear faint laughter or crying. It carries on the wind in the long Arctic nights, soft and distant, almost imperceptible at first. The sounds are haunting in their familiarity, echoing the lives once vibrant in this isolated settlement. They drift through the empty cabins, across the frozen paths, and over the icy waters, creating a sense of unease, as though the past has not fully released its hold on the present. Shadows vanish when approached. Walking along the snow-laden streets, one might see movement at the corner of the eye, a fleeting presence standing at a window. A fleeting presence standing at a window or near the old community hall. As the observer approaches, the figure dissolves into the darkness or the swirling snow, leaving a lingering sense that the village itself is alive with memories, watching silently, yet never fully revealing its secrets. The houses tell stories of a different time. With creaks in the wind, frost patterns cling to broken windows, and peeling paint exposes layers of history. Some homes still contain remnants of domestic life, chairs tipped over, belongings left as though the residents intended to return, yet never did. Each structure is a monument to the people who once inhabited Shishmaref, and each contributes to the lingering atmosphere of ghostly presence. The Arctic environment amplifies the haunting sensation. Snow drifts cover pathways, muffling footsteps, yet sometimes the sound seems sharper than it should, echoing in the stillness. The wind carries the cries and laughter, mixing them with the natural sounds of cracking ice and distant wildlife. Every corner, every building, every frozen street seems to hold a fragment of the village's history, replaying it softly for anyone willing to listen. Visitors often speak of sudden chills that pass without warning. Even in the absence of storm or wind, cold sweeps through the empty homes and along the streets, brushing shoulders and sending a shiver down the spine. These sensations are fleeting but undeniable, reinforcing the sense that Shishmaref is more than an abandoned village. It is a living memory, a place where the past and present overlap in subtle, eerie ways. The shoreline adds to the spectral atmosphere. Icy waters stretch beyond the village, reflecting moonlight and clouds in distorted patterns. Shadows appear along the frozen edge, sometimes near abandoned boats or weathered docks, only to vanish when approached. The constant presence of the sea, coupled with the village's isolation, gives Shishmaref an otherworldly quality, as if it exists at the boundary between reality and memory. Nightfall brings a village into sharper focus for those who remain. Lights flicker in broken windows, or along pathways where lanterns once burned. Figures drift silently across open spaces, and the wind carries whispers and faint cries from distant corners. There is a feeling that the history of the village is not entirely gone, that the lives once lived here linger, echoing softly in the stillness of the Arctic night. Exploring Shishmaref is a study in contrast between desolation and persistence. The natural beauty of the Arctic landscape is undeniable, yet it is interwoven with the subtle, haunting presence of human history. Shadowy figures, flickering lights, faint laughter, and icy touches all combine to create an atmosphere that is both captivating and unsettling. A place where the memory of life refuses to be completely buried. Shishmaref endures as a testament to the resilience of its people and the inevitability of change. The village is quiet, yet full of echoes, ghostly forms, distant laughter, vanishing shadows, and the occasional chill serve as reminders that history is not confined to books or photographs. It is embedded in the very air, snow, and structures of this northern settlement, a living memory that haunts the landscape quietly, persistently, and with undeniable presence. Visitors leave with a profound sense of awe and contemplation. Shishmaref is more than an abandoned Arctic village. It is a place where the past lingers, touching those who come close, whispering through the wind and appearing in fleeting shadows. Every step through its streets, every glance toward the empty cabins, and every sensation of sudden cold reinforces the feeling that the village, though largely deserted, remains alive in memory, presence, and spirit. Fort Yukon Flats sits quietly beneath the northern sky, a place where the past never truly left. The wind moves through the abandoned buildings, carrying a chill that seeps into bones and thoughts alike. Time seems suspended here, and every structure tells a story of lives once lived, work once done, and a community that has long since vanished from these frozen plains. Figures drift through abandoned buildings. Those who visit often glimpse fleeting shapes just beyond their vision, shadows that vanish when approached. Some move silently through hallways, pausing at doorways, their presence felt rather than seen. Others appear at the edges of windows, standing in silence before disappearing into the cold, leaving only the faintest trace of movement. A reminder that Fort Yukon Flats is more than its empty structures. Visitors hear whispers and footsteps where no one walks. The sound carries across long hallways and empty rooms, subtle at first, then growing into a chorus of disembodied voices. Some hear conversations that seem to repeat past events, fragments of memory frozen in time. The wind itself seems to carry these sounds, turning every creak of the floorboards or groan of the roof into a message from the past. Some rooms lock themselves with no one inside. Doors swing shut, catching the light of the low sun. Keys and locks hold secrets they will not reveal. And each click of the latch is a reminder that Fort Yukon Flats is governed by forces unseen. These incidents leave visitors wary, aware that the abandoned structures are not entirely empty, and that the history of the place continues to exert its presence. The environment of Fort Yukon Flats is as much a character as the structures themselves. Snow drifts against walls and through broken windows, muffling footsteps and sound. Ice glints on wooden beams, making every shadow appear to move, every reflection a possible specter. Even in daylight, the village feels otherworldly, as if the air itself remembers the people who once lived and worked here. Exploring the buildings is an exercise in observation and patience. Rusted tools lie scattered on floors. Furniture remains where it was last used, and the walls are etched with years of wear and history. Each room tells a story of daily life, work, and community. The stillness is deceptive, as if the past has paused and waits for visitors to witness what once was the echoes of footsteps long gone yet never forgotten. The interplay of light and shadow adds to the atmosphere. In the fading light of dusk, the village becomes more enigmatic, and shadows lengthen, merging with the dark corners of abandoned rooms. At night, the cold intensifies, and every whisper carried on the wind feels deliberate, purposeful, and alive. Sounds are amplified in the silence of Fort Yukon Flats. The soft crunch of snow underfoot, the groan of a sagging roof, and the flutter of broken curtains all take on significance. Visitors often sense movement just beyond their vision, a presence felt rather than seen. The air seems charged with memories, and the line between the living and the echoes of the past becomes blurred. The architecture itself contributes to the sense of haunting. Long hallways, narrow staircases, and empty rooms create spaces where shadows gather and light bends unexpectedly. Each building is a time capsule, preserving the forms of life that once animated it. Figures glimpsed in these spaces are fleeting, their appearance brief yet undeniable. They remind all who enter that Fort Yukon Flats has not relinquished its history, and that the stories embedded in its walls continue to resonate. Visitors leave Fort Yukon Flats with impressions rather than explanations. The echoes of footsteps, the whispers in empty rooms, the doors that move on their own, all linger long after the cold northern air has been left behind. It is a place where memory and presence intertwine, where the past is tangible and ever watchful. Every shadow, every sound, every subtle movement reminds those who come here that Fort Yukon Flats is not merely abandoned, but a living record of time that refuses to fade completely. The experience of wandering through Fort Yukon Flats is one of reflection and reverence. It is a place where history is alive in ways both seen and unseen, where the echoes of those who came before continue to shape the atmosphere and the sensations of the present. Here, the past never left, and the silence is never truly empty. Every visitor becomes part of the ongoing story, walking through spaces where the ordinary meets the extraordinary, and where the invisible presence of history is always near. The experience of wandering through Fort Yukon Flats is one of reflection and reverence. Fort Yukon Flats is a reminder that even in the harshest environments, the human story endures. Buildings, snow, and wind carry the weight of memory. Figures drift, whispers travel, and rooms lock themselves in a ritual of remembrance. The village is more than collection structures. It is a testament to lives that shape the land, a chronicle of existence that continues to echo through every abandoned hallway, across every frost-covered field, and within every shadow that lingers, patiently observing all who wander through its frozen remains. New Laddo is a village wrapped in snow and silence, a place where the past lingers in every frozen corner. Streets are blanketed in white, and the stillness of the landscape is both beautiful and unsettling. Buildings stand stoic against the cold, their walls bearing the marks of decades of harsh winters. The quiet is profound, broken only by the occasional gust of wind or the distant creak of a weathered door. In this isolated setting, visitors often sense that the village is not entirely empty. Figures appear at windows and doorways, faint and fleeting, visible only for a moment before fading into surrounding snow. These forms create a sense of presence, a reminder that New Laddo holds memories beyond what the eye can see. Each appearance is subtle, prompting careful observation and a heightened awareness of every detail in the environment. Each appearance is subtle, prompting careful observation and a heightened awareness of every detail in the environment. Whispers travel on the wind, carried across snow-covered streets and into abandoned homes. They are soft and fragmented, almost imperceptible, yet they resonate in the mind long after they fade. Names, fragmented conversation, or barely audible sounds drift from one corner of the village to another, mingling with the natural noises of ice cracking and wind sweeping across rooftops. Visitors often pause, listening carefully, feeling the village communicate in a language that is quiet but insistent. Cold spots appear suddenly in abandoned halls, chilling the air in ways that seem to defy explanation. Walkers feel icy touches on their skin, fleeting yet unmistakable. These moments are subtle but powerful, creating an atmosphere where the natural and the supernatural intertwine. The sense of being watched or accompanied is pervasive, yet never threatening, drawing attention to the village itself as a living repository of memory and presence. As a living repository of memory and presence. The architecture of New Laddo adds to its mysterious charm. Wooden cabins, weathered and frost-covered, stand with sagging roofs and cracked windows. Doors hang slightly ajar, inviting exploration yet guarding the secrets within. Each structure tells a story, preserving traces of lives that once animated the village. Walking through these spaces, visitors encounter echoes of the past, small details that speak to the rhythm of life that existed long before the settlement became still and silent. Snow-covered streets twist and turn between the buildings, creating pathways that guide exploration through the village. Shadows stretch across the ground as the sun dips low or moonlight casts a pale glow. These shadows seem to move independently at times, heightening the sense that New Laddo is alive in subtle ways. Figures may appear at the edge of perception, vanish into the snow, or linger just long enough to make the observer question what is real and what is imagined. The surrounding wilderness reinforces Village's atmosphere of isolation and quiet mystery. Rivers and frozen streams carve the landscape, their surfaces smooth and unbroken. Every element of nature in Nulato contributes to a heightened sensory experience, encouraging visitors to notice even the smallest movement, sound, or change in temperature. Inside abandoned homes, the silence is profound and intimate. Floors creak under weight, doors shift with gusts of wind, and icy drafts move unpredictably through hallways. Cold spots appear in moments of quiet, brushing against arms or shoulders. Observers often feel a presence nearby, subtle and persistent, hinting at the continuity of life beyond what is visible. The interior spaces of Nulato echo with history, preserving the traces of those who once lived there. The auditory landscape of the village is equally haunting. Whispers drift across streets and interiors, mingling with the natural sounds of wind, ice, and shifting snow. Each sound is layered with the weight of memory, inviting attention and contemplation. The village seems to speak in these subtle cues, offering insights into the rhythms of its past and creating a sense of connection for those willing to listen closely. As night falls, Nulato transforms into a realm of quiet mystery. Figures drift through the snow-covered streets. Whispers travel on the wind, and shadows stretch along abandoned buildings. And cold spots appear unexpectedly in homes and hallways. And the village takes on a spectral quality, drawing visitors into a narrative that is both contemplative and subtly unsettling. Visitors leave Nulato with a sense of wonder and reflection. The village is not merely a collection of abandoned buildings, but a living memory, preserved in the interplay of snow, shadow, sound, and presence. Ghostly figures, whispered voices, and icy touches create an atmosphere that is both immersive and unforgettable. Nulato endures as a testament to the persistence of memory and the quiet stories of a place where the past continues to resonate through every street, building, and path. In every frozen doorway, along each snow-covered street, and through every grove of skeletal trees, Nulato tells its story. The figures, whispers, and cold spots invite observers to experience the village as it exists beyond the physical, a place where the unseen lingers and the past remains vividly present. The settlement is a quiet reminder of isolation, history, and subtle presence. A frozen landscape where curiosity meets mystery and the ordinary transforms into the extraordinary. Galena lies quiet beneath a heavy blanket of snow, its streets frozen in time. The village, once alive with miners, traders, and families, now stands as a ghostly testament to history. Wooden cabins and weathered structures lean beneath the weight of years and ice, their windows dark or faintly glowing with a light that seems to have no source. Every corner of the village tells a story of lives once lived, and of a past that refuses to remain silent. Ghostly figures drift along frozen roads, moving with a calm, deliberate grace. They appear at the edge of vision, sometimes pausing near cabins or lingering on the wooden planks of old walkways. When approached, these figures vanish as if they were never there, leaving only the faintest chill and a sense of being observed. They carry the weight of memory, reminding visitors that Galena is a place where history lingers, where the past and present coexist in quiet tension. Lights flicker within cabins with no occupants. Some glow warmly as if a fire still burns inside. Others blink intermittently, casting long, dancing shadows across the snow outside. The effect is mesmerizing, almost hypnotic, drawing attention to buildings that have long been abandoned. These flickers are accompanied by an eerie stillness, a quiet that contrasts sharply with the imagined bustle of days gone by. The light seems to breathe, guiding attention to corners where the unseen might be watching. Visitors report hearing faint cries or laughter carried by the wind across the village. The sounds are subtle, sometimes indistinct, like fragments of old conversations carried across decades. They drift along snow-laden streets and past cabins, sometimes passing close enough to create a shiver, and sometimes fading into the stillness as if pulled away by invisible hands. It is a haunting, delicate presence, never threatening, but impossible to ignore, filling the empty spaces with whispers of lives long ended. The wooden structures of Galena add to the feeling of lingering presence. Doors creak gently in the wind, and floors settle with soft groans. The snow muffles sound, yet it amplifies the smallest noise ceasa. The shifting of ice on rooftops, the distant tapping of frozen shutters, the gentle clatter of loose boards. Each sound seems to carry a story, a memory embedded in the village itself, connecting the present to a past frozen, not only in climate, but in time. Paths through the village are lined with snowdrifts and remnants of old wooden fences. The sun glints off the ice in the day, casting a surreal glow across the buildings. Shadows move differently here, lengthening and bending across snow-covered streets, creating shapes that can be mistaken for figures or forms. These illusions blend with reality, and visitors often pause, caught between curiosity and unease, wondering if what they see is real or merely a trick of light and imagination. Even in silence, Galena breathes a story. Windows of abandoned cabins reflect the cold light of the Arctic sky, creating a sense of presence even when the streets are empty. Footsteps on the snow feel louder, heavier, and yet the snow itself seems to absorb and carry them, creating echoes that appear almost alive. There is a rhythm to the village, a quiet pulse that seems to emanate from the snow, ice, and buildings alike, as though the town itself remembers and responds to every visitor. As night falls, the village transforms. Figures appear more vividly, lingering near doors or beneath old porches. Whispers rise on the cold air, faint but persistent, echoing across the snow. The darkness heightens the sense of mystery, and every flicker of light or movement seems charged with meaning. It is in this quiet, frozen night that Galena reveals itself most fully, as a place alive with the unseen, a village where the past lingers and watches those who enter. The snow, the wind, the structures, and the shadows combine to create an immersive, atmospheric experience. The village is both beautiful and haunting, a frozen memory preserved in time. Visitors sense a connection to lives long ended, to histories that continue to whisper through the cabins and streets. It is a place where imagination meets reality, and every footstep and glance carries the weight of what has been left behind. Galena remains a quiet sentinel of history, its presence more felt than explained. Every building, street, and snow-covered path is imbued with memory. Lights flicker, figures drift, and whispers rise, but there is no malice here. Instead, there is a contemplative stillness, a reminder of the endurance of place and memory, of how the echoes of the past can remain in even the most frozen and desolate of villages. That lingers long after the snow has melted, and a living, breathing reminder that places retain, who once lived there, and faint sounds create a layered, textured world. It is a quiet, haunting experience, and a deep respect for a village, with unseen watchers and the enduring. Galena is a place of stillness and subtle hauntings, where the frozen roads, the snow-laden cabins, and the unseen figures tell stories without words. Each visit becomes a journey into memory, an encounter with the lingering past, and a reminder that history is never truly gone. Shadows, light, and whispers shape an environment that lives quietly in the haunting beauty of Galena. Is a place of stillness and subtle hauntings where the frozen roads, the snow-laden cabins, and the unseen figures tell stories without words. Each visit becomes a journey into memory. Each visit becomes a reminder that history. Eagle sits quietly along the Yukon River, a settlement once alive with trade, chatter, and the rhythm of daily life. A settlement once alive with trade, chatter, and the rhythm of daily life. The streets that were once busy now lie under blankets of snow, stretching silently toward the horizon. The wind whistles through empty buildings, carrying with it fragments of the past, echoes of a time when the town was full of purpose and movement. Figures appear near frozen rivers. Shapes can be glimpsed moving at the edge of vision, just beyond the ice. They drift slowly, almost blending with the shadows, their presence felt rather than seen clearly. The frozen waters reflect the dim light of the sun, casting long, distorted shadows that seem to shift and move independently. Visitors speak of seeing silhouettes standing along the banks, watching silently before fading into the white landscape. Whispers echo across abandoned streets. The wind carries soft murmurs, rising and falling as it sweeps through the town. They are subtle at first, almost lost amid the rustling of snow and the groaning of old timbers. Then they grow more distinct, like the faint recollection of voices from long ago. Residents who once walked these streets seem to linger in memory, leaving behind a presence that continues to speak in quiet tones across the empty avenues. Shadows vanish into snowdrifts. Walking through Eagle, one might notice movement in the periphery of sight, a dark shape crossing a yard or slipping between buildings. But as attention focuses on it, the shadow disappears, leaving only a hollow sense of absence and a fresh imprint of snow. These fleeting visions create an uncanny feeling, as though the town itself remembers the people who once inhabited it and momentarily allows their presence to return. The buildings tell stories without words. Weathered walls, cracked windows, and sagging roofs offer hints of the lives once lived here. Inside, old floors creak under footsteps that are not there, and doors shift slightly with the wind, sometimes appearing to close on their own. The interiors hold remnants of domestic life and trade, objects left behind, quietly narrating the rhythm of past daily routines. The frozen river is both boundary and stage. Ice stretches across the waterway, reflecting the pale sunlight and the endless sky. Footprints in the snow appear without explanation, and occasional shapes are seen along the banks, pause as if observing the landscape. The river carries stories of arrival and departure, of trade and travel, and even now seems to whisper those stories to those who wander close enough to listen. Night in Eagle heightens the sense of the spectral. Shapes appear at corners near doorways or along the frozen river. Soft murmurs of conversation or laughter might be carried by the wind, sounding close and yet impossible to locate. The town seems to hold its breath, allowing glimpses of a life that once thrived and now only flickers in memory. Visitors often report sudden chills. A gust of Arctic wind may brush a shoulder or pass through a room, leaving the impression of unseen presence. Even in calm weather, a cold spot might form without warning, as if the memories of the past resist the passage of time. These sensations are fleeting but unmistakable, intensifying a haunting atmosphere of the abandoned town and the impression that it is far from empty. The streets of Eagle stretch outward, lined with structures that seem frozen between decay and preservation. Old trading posts, cabins, and communal buildings each hold fragments of human life, faint impressions of footsteps, gestures, and daily routines. Together they form a mosaic of history, one that persists in the landscape, in shadows, and in the fleeting shapes that appear to wander the snow-laden streets. Time feels different in Eagle. The past appears to bleed into the present, creating a subtle tension in the air. Figures by the river, whispers across streets, and vanishing shadows all contribute to a sense that this town is inhabited not only by memory, but by spectral fragments of its former residents. Every creaking floorboard, every shifting snowdrift, and every flicker of movement serves as a reminder that the history of Eagle is not entirely gone. Exploring the town is a journey through both history and atmosphere. Each step across the snow is accompanied by the weight of absence and the echo of presence. The frozen river, the empty streets, and the skeletal buildings all work together to create an environment where the visitor feels the lingering imprint of those who came before. It is a place that invites contemplation, reflection, and a heightened awareness of the stories that remain etched into the very landscape. Eagle endures as a testament to both human endeavor and the passage of time. Though mostly deserted, the town remains alive in a subtle, haunting way. Figures at the river, whispers across streets, and shadows disappearing into snowdrifts remind all who visit that the life of Eagle is not entirely confined to the past. The spirit of the town persists in these quiet, fleeting encounters, offering a glimpse of history that is tangible, atmospheric, and undeniably present. For those who wander its streets, Eagle offers a haunting yet beautiful experience. Every snow-laden path, every abandoned building, and every mysterious shadow tells a story of a place where human life once thrived, and where memory continues to linger. The town, silent and frozen, speaks softly to those who listen, preserving the essence of its past, and allowing its presence to resonate with all who pass through. Circle sits silently beneath endless skies, a village lost in snow and time. The wind sweeps across frozen rooftops, carrying a cold that seeps into every corner of abandoned homes and empty streets. Each structure stands as a frozen monument, a relic of a community that once thrived, now surrendered to ice and silence. Visitors report figures walking silently. Shapes appear just beyond vision, drifting along narrow pathways and through empty doorways. They move without haste, their presence felt more than seen, lingering in the peripheral view of those who dare to explore. Every step in the snow seems to echo back not just a visitor's movement, but the memory of lives long gone, footsteps layered over decades of stillness. Some hear footsteps in empty halls. Wooden floors creak with unseen weight, and corridors carry sounds that have no source. It is as if the village itself remembers the passage of time and seeks to share its history through subtle, haunting cues. Every room holds a memory of daily life, of laughter and work, of footsteps that once resonated through these walls, now replaced by a quieter, spectral rhythm. Shadowy shapes disappear in the darkness. When the fading light of day touches the village, long shadows stretch across frozen windows and snow-laden streets. Figures appear at the edge of vision, only to vanish when approached, leaving behind a whisper of movement and the chill of an unseen presence. The interplay of shadow and light turns every corner into a moment of suspense, every doorway into a threshold between the living and the echoes of the past. The village itself is a character. Even in daylight, the landscape carries an aura of otherworldliness, a suspended reality where time has folded back on itself. Visitors often speak of profound quiet. The absence of modern life amplifies every sound. From the soft flutter of a loose shutter to the distant groan of wood settling under frost. Footsteps of the living mix with echoes of the past. And the wind itself carries whispers that seem to call out to anyone willing to listen. It is an environment that invites reflection, where every creak and sigh of the village suggests the presence of those who once walked these streets. Exploring the abandoned buildings reveals the layers of life left behind. Doors hang slightly ajar, furniture sits as it was last used, and tools and belongings remain where they were abandoned. Each object tells a story, preserving the mundane and extraordinary alike. Visitors often feel a lingering gaze, an intangible awareness that they are not alone, that the memory of Circle is alive and observing. The interplay of light and shadow enhances the sense of haunting. Morning sun creates fleeting shapes across snow-packed floors, while the pale evening light casts long, shifting shadows that animate even the stillest rooms. Pale evening light casts long, shifting shadows that animate even the stillest rooms. Every whisper of wind, every faint creak, takes on a life of its own, as if the village itself participates in an unending narrative. Every whisper of wind, every faint creak, takes on a life of its own, as if the village itself participates in an unending narrative. At night, the cold deepens, and the village transforms into a theater of suggestion. At night, the cold deepens, and the village transforms into a theater of suggestion. The village itself participates in an unending narrative. Sounds are magnified in the quiet of Circle. Each movement resonates, carrying weight and meaning. Visitors often sense presences just beyond perception, fleeting glimpses in windows or reflections in icy surfaces. The village seems to breathe, its history infusing the environment with subtle motion, a rhythm of absence and memory that draws the living into its quiet drama. The architecture of Circle contributes to its eerie atmosphere. Long hallways, narrow staircases, and simple wooden homes create spaces where shadows gather. And light behaves unpredictably. Every building is a repository of the past, holding within it the energy of lives that once moved freely. Figures glimpsed in these spaces seem to belong both to the present and to another time, reminding visitors that Circle is a bridge between what was and what remains. Explorers leave Circle with impressions that linger. The echo of footsteps, the whispers carried on the wind, the fleeting figures glimpsed at the edge of vision, all remain long after the snow-covered village has been left behind. Circle is not merely abandoned. It is inhabited by memory, by the presence of history that refuses to fade completely. Each visitor becomes part of its ongoing story, moving through a space where the ordinary and the extraordinary intersect. The experience of Circle is both reflective and unsettling. The village stands as a testament to resilience and loss, to human habitation, and the inexorable passage of time. Figures drift, shadows vanish, and every creaking floorboard or shifting wind becomes a message from the past. Circle is a place where memory lingers, where the invisible life of the village continues to influence the living, and where the silence itself is charged with presence. Circle is a village where the past is never gone, where the remnants of human life intermingle with the stark beauty of a frozen landscape. It is a place that invites contemplation and demands attention, where every step, every sound, and every flicker of movement carries the weight of history. Visitors leave with a sense of having touched something eternal, a quiet understanding that Circle exists not just in space, but in the echoes of time and memory that persist within its snow-laden streets and abandoned buildings. In Circle, the living encounter the remnants. Figures, whispers, and shadows are constant companions. Yet they are gentle, never threatening. The village offers an experience of connection across time, a place where the ordinary world and the echoes of history merge. Here, snow and silence preserve not just structures, but presence. And every visitor who walks these frozen streets becomes part of the ongoing narrative that is Circle. Tanana is a settlement carved into the Alaskan wilderness, a place where history lingers beneath layers of snow and ice. The village is quiet, yet it is not lifeless. The old cabins, weathered and frost-covered, seem to hold memories within their walls, echoes of lives long past. Walking through Tanana, one senses the presence of something unseen, a subtle awareness that the landscape itself remembers. Figures appear at windows and doorways, moving with a stillness that is both eerie and captivating. They linger just long enough to be noticed, then vanish as if absorbed by the surrounding snow. These forms are not threatening, yet their sudden appearance evokes a heightened awareness of the environment. Each encounter is fleeting, a reminder that Tanana is a place where the past quietly intersects with the present. Whispers drift across the snow, carried on gusts of wind that swirl around the cabins and frozen streets. Names fragment a conversation, and indistinct sounds seem to come from every direction, lingering in the cold air. Visitors feel as though the village is speaking to them in a language of memory and presence, inviting careful attention to the smallest details. These whispers are gentle yet persistent, a subtle thread connecting the living to the unseen, inviting careful attention to the smallest details. Cold spots strike without warning in empty rooms and along silent pathways. The sudden chill brushes against skin, startling yet brief, leaving a lingering sense of otherworldly presence. These sensations are never violent, but they make the air feel alive, as if the spirits of Tanana move alongside those who explore its frozen expanse. Each icy touch enhances a feeling of connection to a village shaped by history, isolation, and resilience. The cabins themselves are rich with character. Wooden walls, aged and scarred by decades of harsh winters, hold secrets in every creaking floorboard and frost-laden corner. Windows are often frost-covered or cracked, and doors hang slightly ajar, revealing interiors filled with shadows and quiet echoes. Walking through these spaces, visitors encounter traces of past lives, subtle reminders of activity that has long since faded, yet continues to leave an impression on the present. Snow-covered streets weave between the cabins, creating pathways that invite exploration. Shadows stretch across the snow as the low winter sun dips or moonlight casts a pale glow. These shadows seem to shift with subtle movements, creating an environment where perception is heightened and every detail becomes significant. Figures may appear at the edge of sight, vanish into the snow, or linger just long enough to unsettle the senses, blending seamlessly with the natural landscape. The surrounding wilderness adds to the village's enigmatic atmosphere. Trees, bare and skeletal, sway in the wind, casting long patterns of shadow across the frozen ground. Rivers and frozen streams cut to the landscape, reflecting muted light across Tanana. The interplay of natural elements with the presence of figures, whispers, and cold spots creates an immersive experience where the ordinary world feels touched by the extraordinary. Inside the cabins, the silence is profound. Floors creak beneath footsteps. Doors shift in the wind, and icy drafts sweep unpredictably through hallways. The visitors feel cold touches on shoulders or hands. Subtle yet undeniable. The interiors are charged with an energy that is quiet and contemplative, a reminder that Tanana is a place where memory and presence are tangible. The environment itself seems to participate in the storytelling, preserving echoes of lives long past. The auditory landscape of Tanana is hauntingly beautiful. Whispers mingle with the soft crunch of snow underfoot, and the distant groan of wooden structures. Sounds carry in the open, filling the air with a sense of history and continuity. Every noise, from the faintest murmur to the creak of timber, feels purposeful, guiding visitors through a narrative of the village as both a physical and spiritual space. As darkness falls, Tanana transforms into a realm of quiet mystery. Figures drift through the snow, shadows stretch along cabins. Cold spots appear unexpectedly in empty rooms. Whispers echo across the landscape, a gentle reminder of the village's enduring presence. The environment becomes immersive, blending the natural and the unseen, drawing visitors into an experience that is contemplative, atmospheric, and unforgettable. Tanana endures as a living memory, where the past continues to resonate through every cabin, street, and frozen path. Ghostly figures, drifting shadows, whispered voices, and sudden chills create an atmosphere that is immersive and evocative. Visitors leave with the impression of a place shaped not only by history and environment, but by the lingering presence of those who have walked its paths before. In every doorway, along each snow-covered street, and beneath every frost-covered roof, the figures, whispers, and cold spots invite exploration and reflection, transforming a remote Alaskan village into a space where memory, presence, and mystery converge. The settlement is a quiet testament to history, isolation, and subtle activity. A frozen landscape where curiosity meets enigma, and the ordinary becomes extraordinary. The figures, whispers, and cold spots invite exploration and reflection, transforming a remote Alaskan village into a space where memory, presence, and mystery converge. Wiseman Ridge Settlement lies at the edge of a frozen expanse, a village suspended in time and silence. Snow blankets the ground, muffling sound and creating a stillness that feels almost unnatural. The buildings, weathered and abandoned, lean beneath the weight of ice and frost, their windows dark, yet sometimes flickering with light that seems to have no source. The settlement carries the weight of its history, whispers of lives once lived lingering in every shadowed corner. Figures drift silently across snow-covered paths. They appear at the edge of vision, sometimes pausing near cabins. When approached, they vanish, leaving only the chill of unseen breath and the sensation of being observed. The air seems heavy with memory, and visitors quickly realize that the settlement is more than a quiet remnant of human habitation. It is a place where the past lingers, shaping the present in ways both subtle and unsettling. Lights flicker inside abandoned buildings. Some shine faintly from broken windows, casting long, shifting shadows across the snow outside. Others blink intermittently, as if the structures themselves remember the warmth of human presence. These lights seem alive, guiding attention to corners where history has left its mark. They create an otherworldly atmosphere, making even the most mundane cabin or shack feel charged with unseen energy. These lights seem alive, guiding attention to corners where history has left its mark. Visitors speak of feeling watched. The sensation is not constant, but comes in fleeting moments. A subtle pressure on the shoulders, a shift in the air, or the feeling that someone stands just beyond sight. It is a presence that is not threatening, but impossible to ignore. Every step along the snow-covered paths is met with an awareness of the unseen, a reminder that Wiseman Ridge is more than a settlement. It is a silent witness to the lives and stories of those who came before. The snow itself seems to hold memory. Footsteps leave crisp impressions, yet they also seem to echo in the quiet, creating whispers in the mind of anyone walking the paths. Wind drifts across rooftops and streets, carrying soft, almost human-like sounds. The buildings creak and groan as if settling under the weight of history, adding to the sense that the village is alive with subtle movements. Every sound, every flicker of light, and every shadow contributes to a sense of immersion that is both captivating and disquieting. Even in daylight, Wiseman Ridge carries an eerie beauty. Sunlight reflects off ice-covered roofs, creating patterns that seem to shift and move. Shadows stretch across the snow, twisting along walls and paths, producing fleeting forms that vanish as quickly as they appear. Visitors often pause, caught between curiosity and unease, unsure if what they see is real or conjured by the cold and quiet. The village is at once serene and unnerving, a place where imagination and reality intertwine. As night falls, the settlement transforms. Figures appear more clearly now, drifting near cabins or along pathways, their movements fluid and deliberate. Flickering lights within buildings seem to pulse with a life of their own, illuminating windows and doorways that have long been empty. The silence is deep, broken only by the occasional creak of wood or the whisper of wind over snow, and yet it feels charged with presence. The atmosphere of Wiseman Ridge is both immersive and haunting. Visitors sense the weight of history in every step, the echo of past lives in every shadow, and the persistent presence of unseen watchers. The settlement is a living memory, preserved in ice and snow, where every cabin, path, and flickering light tells a story. The chill in the air and the subtle movements of shadows and figures create an environment that captivates the senses and leaves a lasting impression. Those who explore Wiseman Ridge leave carrying more than photographs or memories of scenery. They carry a sense of having entered a space where time and history are palpable, where the living and the unseen share the same frozen paths. The village leaves its mark, an awareness of the past that lingers long after leaving the snow-covered streets. Figures, lights, whispers, and the presence of unseen watchers combine to form a tapestry of subtle hauntings, shaping the experience of the settlement in a way that is both compelling and unsettling. Wiseman Ridge Settlement is more than a frozen village. It is a place where memory and presence coexist, where history lingers in every shadow, and where visitors encounter the weight of lives once lived. Figures drift, lights flicker, and whispers echo, creating an environment that is immersive, atmospheric, and hauntingly beautiful. Every step taken in the snow feels charged with unseen energy, leaving those who enter forever changed by the quiet, frozen world of Wiseman Ridge. The village stands as a silent witness to time, preserving echoes of the past in every structure, street, and snow-laden path. Visitors experience the presence of figures drifting across frozen landscapes, lights that seem to carry stories, and a subtle awareness of watchers unseen. It is a place of contemplation and mystery, a settlement where the past is ever present and every moment carries the weight of history. A settlement where the past is ever present and every moment carries the weight of history. Wiseman Ridge invites exploration, reflection, and a deep respect for a world that exists quietly, hauntingly, and enduringly in the frozen north. Thank you for joining me tonight as we wander through 25 haunted abandoned villages in Alaska. The snow is silent by day, but after dark, it carries the voices of the past, the shadows of those who never left. and the cold touch of restless spirits. If you ever find yourself in an abandoned Alaskan village, remember the stories you heard tonight. Watch the shadows, heed the whispers, and beware, for in the snow, the past never truly dies. Sleep well tonight, if you can.